Hello, and welcome to the Weekly Scroll podcast brought to you by the Adventure Archive. My name is Ryan.
I'm Hunter.
And today we have a very special guest with us, Kevin Rahman, the creator of Forbidden Psalm mini skirmish game. How are you doing this morning?
I'm pretty good, thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah. We are glad to have you. We're stoked to talk about this.
Absolutely. So the question, every time we do this, we always start the same way where it's like we haven't been talking for 30 minutes, but we have been. And I've been trying really hard not to ask the questions that I wanted to ask. And one of the things that struck me the most about this that I really wanted to ask is, and I think I might get to the question from Andy in a little bit about it, but what was the inspiration to not only make a skirmish game, but to also have the RPG elements in it as well?
Yeah. I suppose like I play a bunch of miniature games, but I come from being a role player first. Like I've done 15, 20 years of doing role play games and then gone into miniature games about 4 years ago. And the thing that lacked for me in the miniatures games is they were always very competitive, rules very heavy, the ones I was playing, but there's nothing that really like told a story as you're playing. And I wanted that. So that's where something like Mörk Borg and bringing in that kind of RPG setting into it, it just tells more of a narrative story. And it's why so much of the book is heavily kind of favored in that way. It also means you can get away with like not having the most balanced set of rules because it's much more about telling a story than it is about worrying about how powerful one unit is over another unit or the interactions between different units. So yeah, that was how, I could have floors and feats that differ wildly in how powerful they were in terms of on the tabletop. So yeah, I think it was just that's what the inspiration was really, is wanting that kind of game myself. I'd much prefer those kind of narrative games, and miniatures gaming has moved away from that and much more into like competitive games recently, even like things like 40K that really were about telling a story with a bunch of toys now have gone into like competitive scene, and everything's competitive, everything's got to be balanced for competitive, and I'm just not as interested in that as a gamer. I find that more stressful. Like it's not as fun to play as telling a story with toy soldiers.
Absolutely.
So do you mainly play like 40K, or do you have like other miniature games that you also play as well?
I play a bunch, yeah. So actually what got me into it is a game called Infinity, which is the most complex miniature game that exists because I decided to go in at the deep end. It is honestly just the rules interactions in that game are insane. It's a really good fun game, but it's super complex. But I also play Frostgrave, and I have played 40K. I have played 30K, which is like the even nerdier version of 40K somehow. But yeah, just a bunch of different minis games that I've played over the years, and just found that the one that kind of hit the nail closest was like the Frostgrave, which is probably the most kind of closest comparison to something like Forbidden Psalm, which again kind of tells that more narrative. It's much more about a narrative that your guys are getting up to on the table than it is about winning or losing or being.
30K is the Horus Heresy.
Yeah, so it's
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's 40K for people who really care about the color of their minis and they've got the right armor. Yeah, there's a group I play it with. They're great guys, but if you put a guy on the table and he's wearing the Space Marine armor that's like he shouldn't have, they'll tell you, oh yeah, they'll point it out, and I'll be like, I don't care. It's a guy with a gun.
Hey man, gotta keep the lore straight in the Horus Heresy. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's great.
So speaking of, no, what was that?
I'm saying it's great. I just don't ever care enough about I want to paint all my Space Marines pink, and they're like,
yeah, that totally seems fine to me. Yeah, I know that those games can be really, really, really rules intensive, and I know because I wanted to get into them for a while, but I didn't want to like put the money in. And I know like part of it is like painting your minis, like you have to be specific to be part of the rules, and so it's nice to have, because I like the tactical crunch of a miniatures game, and so like Forbidden Psalm is really nice because you look through it and you're like, oh, like this is fun, it's tactical. It's almost like what was the Kill Team? Is that the it's almost like Kill Team, except the rules are still simpler and like it's much more narrative driven while still having that crunch of a good minis game.
Yeah, that was kind of the goal. And you mentioned cost. That was the other factor of like, hey, you need 5 guys, and there are paper standees in the back of the book that you can cut out and use before you even spend any money on miniatures, and kind of having that low bar to entry so people could come and play this without having to worry about painting minis if they didn't want to.
I do like the paper standees. It reminds me of like very, very old school, like D&D. And I think we should go back to that. We should all go back to paper standees.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
Yeah, I like it. I love it. So I have, I'm gonna try to stop screaming. I have a lot of miniatures, but most of mine are from like the 3.5 pre-painted lines. I've done some painting and assembling of miniatures. Are yours generally like the kit bashing, like clip them out, do the whole nine with that? Is that like the more hobby side of it? Is that generally what you kind of gear more towards?
Yeah, I think last year I built and painted something like 400 and something minis. So yeah, I paint a lot of minis. I really like that side of the hobby in terms of the creative side of coming up with weird kit bashing and then painting it. And again, like, you know, this was entirely self-indulgent, writing Forbidden Song with rules that kind of force you to kit bash and just paint weird guys and people that are just, you know, wearing, I don't know, like sheep skulls for heads and all sorts of other madness. Yeah, so I'm very much into that side of the hobby because it's just fun and just a massive kid playing with Lego, basically.
I respect that.
Yeah, couple questions from Andy because it's come up a little bit. I'm talking about Andy. He is a member of the Adventure Archive here, and he is a huge fan of Forbidden Psalm and a big hobbyist with miniatures. For a little while, he was actually streaming mini painting on our channel as well. But he asked, and he brought up Frostgrave. He asked, it is a golden age for skirmish games. Frostgrave, Rain in Hell, numerous Osprey and Games Workshop skirmish IPs with more coming every month. Was it intimidating stepping into a booming industry, or did the popularity of skirmish games kind of embolden you on the road to making Forbidden Psalm?
This can sound terrible. I didn't really think about it. I just kind of wrote a thing and then put it out there, and I was like, hey, if one other person plays this, that'll be cool. And then it kind of took off, and now it's sold God knows how many copies, and you know it's actually doing incredibly well. And I've got this weird community that's built up and kind of surprises me every day. Yeah, I just kind of was like, well, I want to write this thing. If nobody else likes it, fine. Like, I didn't invest anything other than hobby time that I would have done anyway. And then it took off, and people seem to really like it. And it's like, oh, okay, then I should probably take this a bit more seriously.
Well, now you have third-party content for your third-party content with people out there. Have people been reaching out to you about? Because I know you put out like the you know, basically the license to do, you know, basically the same as Mörk Borg license, you can do whatever. Have a lot of people been reaching out to you to do that, or has it just been like the Regicide Kickstarter guys, or?
Yeah, I've had a couple of others that I'm chatting to. I won't say their names yet because they're still in the progress of working on their projects, and I don't want to put them on blast. But yeah, I've had a couple reach out, which has been, again, really amazing. I've also had miniature creators that have come out and said, hey, can you write some Forbidden Psalm rules for our minis? And I'm like, okay. So there's a company called Bestiarium Miniatures who do the amazing like gothic sculpts, and they have a patron each month, and I'm now writing scenarios for them each month for the Forbidden rules for their minis because that's what their community wanted. So yeah, even going into places that I never thought it would. Yeah, like I said, the community response has been amazing, and seeing somebody launch a third-party project that was using Forbidden Psalm and doing really well was like amazing. It was just like, that is so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So as it blows up, are you dealing with any issues in the fact that it's getting big and that you're selling so well?
I suppose like the main issues is I want to be really responsive to the community. So I Facebook for the community and like Facebook and all that kind of stuff. And I want to be able to answer those questions. And sometimes you just get so much in that it's like, how am I going to get to all of this? I
believe you.
That's kind of like the biggest issue is that I just want to be, I don't want to seem like aloof or an asshole to the community. I want to be like really supportive of people playing this little game because I'm so thankful for anyone that's interested in it. That, yeah, I just want to be able to support people. And it's why, you know, there's that thing of like, same as the Mörk Borg licensing, like, hey, you want to make stuff? Like, you know, you want to make money making stuff for this, do it. Great, amazing. It's that kind of approach that I want to take. So I think that's probably been the biggest challenge. So far, you know, we haven't had many assholes or like problems in the community. I think that'll be where I'll actually start like actually pulling my hair out and wanting to cry. I've had a couple of small things, but nothing major. I think I mentioned before the stream, last war that's coming out, I had quite a funny email about that from someone who didn't quite like that I basically said, hey, you know, if you're racist, don't play my game. But that's about the worst I've had.
Gotcha. Gosh, I want to make sure I get to Andy's questions because he was so enthusiastic. So the one part, we talked about kit bashing. He said, it's obvious the hobby side of wargaming is important to you. Can you discuss the gift that miniature agnostic games are to creative-minded miniature hobbyists and how Forbidden Psalm encourages players to get crazy with their kit bashing?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I think, so miniature agnostic games, like your Stargrave, Rain in Hell, they're just these like amazing games that just get you thinking about, oh, I can do anything. Like the mini doesn't have to be the set way it comes from the store, the way the company wanted me to build it and paint it. So you start thinking about, okay, well, I want this guy to look like this, or I want my armor to be themed in this set way. And you start kind of coming up with a narrative for your guy much more than, you know, if you buy a bunch of Space Marines and you paint them blue and you go, okay, they're Ultramarines, their story's told, there's nothing interesting there. Whereas if you buy a bunch of guys and you decide that you're going to, you know, give them all hooks for hands. Now you've got to come up with a reason why they all have hooks for hands. And you start telling a story about what these guys have been through, that their hands have all been replaced. Weird that my mind went to hook for hands first. Like that's the kind of thing. So these games that kind of encourage that are fantastic. And I wanted Forbidden Psalm to go one step further and actually like kind of hard bake that in. So it's like, cool, you're going to create a guy, right? Randomly roll to determine what his feat is, what his floor is, what equipment he's got, and now you're going to go build a mini based on what you've rolled. So it's kind of almost that inverse where you're actually, the game is kind of forcing you into a kit bashing environment to some extent. Like you can just pick any mini and use them, but I wanted that kind of hard baked in, that really supportive and try to push people towards that creative angle. And from what the community's been producing, it seems to be relatively effective.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it's been amazing, some of the stuff people have made.
Well, because you also in the book you highlight like miniatures, but then you also have like the anatomy of a miniature, which literally is like this spread about like kit bashing minis and like doing the whole thing. So like it's very clear that like there is a like you said, a purpose and like a it's baked in to actually encourage that to get weird and to just do what you want to do and stuff. And that really plays back into the kind of RPG aspect, because I haven't played a whole lot of skirmish games, but like if you just wrote this as just like an RPG and it didn't have minis, this works completely with like the flaws, the feats, I love the flaws and the feats. I'm like obsessed with those. Yeah. But you could easily, and obviously you can because there's RP sections, just run this as an RPG and not as a skirmish game, and that's fantastic. How's the community been about that blurred line between the war game and the RP? Are there like hobbyists that you've met that like are just like, cool, you have an RP section, but I just ignore those parts? Or like, has there been some crossover with that with the RPG and wargaming section? Like, how has that kind of been in the community?
Yeah, it's been really interesting because you definitely get those people that come to it and are like, oh, that's nice, there's some narrative, but I'm here to roll some dice and have my minis fight some other minis, and that's great. And then you do get the other people that really get into it. There's quite a couple of people now over on the Forbidden Psalm Facebook page that are like writing up their battle reports in a narrative style. So they're not like saying, oh, and I rolled a dice and then this happened. It's full narrative of like what the character got up to, what happened to them, why they were doing it, which is really cool. I've had a couple of people.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's just these amazing like stories they're telling. There's a couple of people who've run the entire book just as an RPG. They've used it as a more core setting. They kind of ignored the miniatures entirely. And again, amazing. That was kind of what I wanted when I wrote it was, hey, however you want to come at this book, I want it to be useful to you. You know, if you buy it because you're interested in the mini side, great. If you're interested in the RPG. But the thing I've noticed the most is a lot of the people have come from games like Mordheim and old school Games Workshop games like Inquisition and things that did have that RPG element, like hard baked in. So they were looking for that kind of crossover game. They were looking for an RPG miniatures game, and they seem to have kind of been attracted to Forbidden Sound for that reason. So that's been really cool as well.
Well, I mean, it's just so. Well, it's just so approachable. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, like you said, the rules in the book are, it's not a whole lot, but they're really, really well done for like the feats and flaws and how they can affect the minis play, but how it's also like very, very easily adaptable into the RP section. And even the adventures, you know, you could easily set those up as, like you said, like full adventures you could run as a campaign. And the fact that all of the monsters, the scrolls, like all of the things are completely compatible with Mörk Borg as it stands now. So there are like so many ways that you can come at the game, and whatever like your little slice of that is, it's there. So it's just really, I can't imagine that it wouldn't be just approachable from so many different aspects of the community. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting about the rules, because the first draft was so much more complicated, and then I went back to it and was like, do I need all these rules? Do I need rules for this thing and this thing? No. And you'll notice there's as many rules in there for like, I just want to throw my weapon at a guy, I just want to toss my axe at a guy over there, as there is for like how combat just works in general, or how movement works. And it was because when I started playtesting, it was like, what is the funny thing I want to do? Right, I need a rule for that, but these other rules that are just like complicated for the sake of it, I don't need those. They go away. Like, screw those. They don't need to exist. So that was a lot of the decision in terms of like how the rules worked on the game, and what rules got to stay. It was, what's funny? What's fun to do?
But I feel like that fits really well with Mörk Borg in general too, because Mörk Borg is like it's like very dark and brutal and stuff like that too, but it has that like kind of gonzo aspect to it as well that is just so, it just hits the nail right on the head for that, where you get to be like a dark edgelord but like make it funny. And I feel like, you know, Pele and Johan did such a good job of doing that. So to have like what you just said, where you just like, I have as many rules for doing the fun stuff as for anything else, it really fits Mörk Borg really, really well. So it's just a really good, it's just a good fit. And I guess my question also then is, what was the original kind of inspiration to be, because obviously you've been playing the skirmish games for a long time. Did you just get Mörk Borg and be like, this is it, this is the one, I must do this thing now? Or kind of what was the impetus originally to push it out there?
Yeah, so if you, that page you held up earlier with the anatomy of a mini, so I made that mini like 2019, I think it was 2020. Sorry, towards the end of 2020. You know, in lockdown, stuck in my house.
Yeah, the year that never happened. We got you. Yeah.
So I made this weird ass mini, and I was like, I need a game for this mini to play in. And I think I remember messaging like the official Morphle Twitter account. I was like, hey, you guys like working on anything miniatures related? And they were like, no. And then I looked at it, and then I saw their third-party license. I was like, I'm just going to write some rules and see if anyone's interested. And then I wasn't even going to like put it on Kickstarter or anything like that. I was just going to write it and put it out. And then someone I knew mentioned Zine Quest, and were like, hey, just check it on Kickstarter. Some people might back. And I was like, okay, fine. You know, if nobody does, I'll just put it out for whatever. And then it got a load of support. And I was like, oh, okay. And then it grew. And then I ended up talking to Exalted Funeral, who were like, yeah, we like this. We want to, you know, pick it up as official partners. And they were like, hey, do you want to do an expansion? I was like, oh, maybe. And then speaking to the community, they were like, yeah, we want more. Make an expansion. I was like, oh, okay. To like into the yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's where that came from, was what the community wanted. And then same with Last War now, which is up on Kickstarter at the moment, was to kind of speaking to the community on Discord about like what you want next. And they were like, same thing, different settings. And I was like, okay, like what? And they're like World War I. I'm like, okay, I'll go make that now. Yeah, so that's been like a lot of the motivation. It's just been responding to like what people have liked and wanted. And yeah, so it all started with me just making a weird ass mini and then writing Mörk Borg on a scroll he's holding. And then that led to this path. Yeah.
So that's the one from the game, right? Like, or from the book, this guy right here. Yeah, this started it all.
That's Niffle the Hermit. That mini is actually with Johan. So I sent it to him. So that mini started. The funny thing is once I'd done the game, we did the Kickstarter, I played a game with that mini. The first game I ever played with it, he tries to cast a scroll, and in the game, if you roll a 1, you have kind of a critical fail, and you then roll. It's called a fumble. You roll on this calamity table. So I roll on the calamity table, and he melts into a puddle. He just dies. So the first outing ever with the mini that started it all, and he just died. So I was like, well, I can't use this mini anymore. He's dead now. So I just sent it to you. I was like, you can have it.
That's awesome. Johan Nor, friend of the show.
Friend of the show, Johan Nor.
How did that come about to actually have him do like the cover art for the book as well?
He was amazing. I literally sent him a message on Discord being like, hey, would you be interested in how much would you charge? And he was like, paint me some minis. And I was like, okay. So that's how that happened on the first book. And in the second book, I was like, right, I'm paying you this time. So, and then he agreed to do the second book as well. So yeah, he's just really supportive of the community. And I guess he liked what I was doing. And same with the big thing on the front cover, that corpse collector, the miniature of that. He's got the original one I painted of that spurred that creature in the game. Yeah, so he's got a bunch of the minis that were like my first warband I created for it, now sit in his house, which was kind of cool. Nice. That was actually an epic tale of getting them to him, because I think it went back and forth twice, because it kept going to Sweden, and then with all the COVID nonsense, they kept sending it back, and yeah. Oh. That warband did a couple of trips around Europe.
Yeah. So speaking of the last war, can you talk a little bit more about that? I know that you said it's basically, Forbidden Psalm, but new setting, World War I. But I said, yeah, just like talk about that a little bit. Like besides just the community being like, this is what we want. What kind of made you jump into that and push that forward?
Yeah. So part of it is I really like historical wargaming, bits of it. And then there are other bits I don't like. And it's that weird thing of, I don't want to play as the Nazis, and I don't want to play anyone that does want to play as the Nazis. So I want a historical war game where I can not worry about real world politics and in that sense. So it's a fictional setting. It's set in a world that has had a World War I, II-esque type event. But instead of the war ending in peace, it's ended in a splutter. And very much in the Mörk Borg style, the world is ending. There's not much you can do about it. All you can do now is eke out your survival in the mud kind of caked trenches of the last war. So you're same as Mörk Borg, you're Forbidden Psalm. You're a warband of 5 guys going into these trenches, trying to just scavenge what you can. Big difference in this one is over the campaign, your warband builds a tank. That tank might not function properly by the end if you don't get all the parts you need. So you might end up pushing it around, or it might only be able to turn left or something. But you build this tank that you then are going to use to try and escape through the fog. So the trenches are surrounded by this fog that nobody can get through. And you're going to try and build a tank that will make its way through the fog. And that's kind of the campaign part of it. So it's very similar to Forbidden Psalm in that it's got all the core rules in it. So you don't need to buy anything Forbidden Psalm related if you're not interested in fantasy and you want to just play something a bit more modern. So it's got rules for guns and more modern guns, rules for like what happens when they jam, what happens with grenades if they explode on you and things like that. You can call in artillery strikes. And there's still manuscripts, there's still horrible monsters, including one that my 13-year-old drew. I was like, draw me something weird. So they drew me this like really weird maggot creature. So there's a thing called the trench maggot, which is just a giant maggot that lives in the trenches that you have to deal with. And yeah, so that's Last War. It's, unashamedly a reskin of Forbidden Psalm, but in a new setting with all new floors.
That's okay. It sounds awesome. So, yeah. And good luck, with that project, making it on Kickstarter, because your goal is $4,000 American dollars, and you have only made, 33,000.
800% funding, something like that.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how you're going to make it. You're only at 800% of your funding with 12 days to go. It's not even. It's like you have 2 whole fucking weeks left on this thing.
Hey, your spitting distance is 666 backers too.
I know. Honestly, again, the support has just been amazing, and I haven't always wanted to do writing and art, and then never really got around to it. Like life got in the way, and then started doing this last year. Just the support from the community has been incredible, and having that many people buy a thing I made is just, honestly, it blows me away all the time. I'm constantly telling my wife, I'm just like, what's going on? Like, how did yeah.
Well,
so
I
funny.
mean, you put out an amazing book with cover art from Johan Noor, public like with Exalted Funeral. I mean, you're living a lot of like creator dream, realistically.
Yeah.
So, and it just
You
sounds
have
like
a day job?
I do have a day job, yeah. So I work full time in for a climate change charity. I'm a policy.
Oh, that's right. We just said that. Sorry. We
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
just
So-
said that.
I work as a policy advisor on climate change and deforestation, which, I don't know if there's anything related with climate change and me writing about the end of the world all the time. But yeah.
and speaking of your kids are on the or doing the trench maggot. There are some that they did in the original book too. I know the Animal Cultist, Great Maw, and there's a couple other through here. Here's the thing. When I was little, I did not get to have this kind of stuff. I got to listen to country music and watch like Little House on the Prairie and crap. What when you were making this, were your kids just like, I have to do something for this, or did you ask them, or was it just them being like, I'm doing this here, Dad, look at what I did kind of thing?
So we've always played board games, role-playing games with them, and before the Great Maw existed before I ever thought about writing a game. That was just a monster my they were 8 at the time year-old drew and wrote rules for as well. Like the whole rules about them like spitting out other monsters and swallowing people, that was them. I toned them down because in theirs it was just like, they swallow you, you die, end of, done. And it's like, cool, there's no chance. No, you're dead now. Move on. I was like, oh.
I mean, that's very Mörk Borg, though. That's very Mörk Borg,
yeah.
you know?
I was like, no one's going to want to play my game if I got all the monsters. They make the most brutal stuff. So it was
kids
just like,
kids have there's no like that like overwhelming sense of failure that life gives you, like, when you grow up and stuff. They still get to dream big and everything. So it's interesting that you had to like tone down the horror of what they were creating. So
completely. And they are like genuinely the sweetest kids. Like my eldest, we like had a parents' evening with the school, and then like music teacher was like, hey, I'm not meant to say this about kids, but your kid is genuinely my favorite. And it was like, they're the nicest kids. And I'm like, you have no idea the stuff they make. And draw. I'm like, you have no idea. Because they are twisted little people. They're amazing. I love them. But yeah, they come up with some really dark stuff, which fits for these games.
That's so fucking hilarious.
Yeah, and I was like, hey, do you want your stuff in the game I'm making? And of course, they're like, yeah, it's amazing. And then each time they give me a piece of art, I buy them something. So my eldest just got a ukulele because they really wanted a ukulele. Yeah, so I'm surprised you can't hear it because they've been playing it all day.
no, but that does sound very Mörk Borg with the Great Maw. The first time we ever played, we did Rot Black Sludge, and I took. I've said this, I think, multiple times on stream because I'll never not be. I'll die angry about this. I didn't take a single point of damage the entire adventure. And then, spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't played it, there's that part, I don't know if you played it, where there's a big white worm in the pit. First attack, first roll, failed agility check, instantly eaten, instantly dead.
Yep.
Like, not a single bit of damage, instant dead on one roll. So, yeah, sounds very Mörk Borg. So.
Yeah, and Forbidden Psalm has those moments in it. They're absolutely there in terms of things that it's just like, yeah, you rolled a 1, you're dead now. That's the thing that's happened. It's why a lot of miniatures games where like they have a death mechanic can feel really punishing. So it's why in Forbidden Psalm it's like, hey, you always get new guys for free. Like there's always more like lost souls and desperate people out there that will come and do work for you. So don't worry about them dying. Enjoy them dying. Have fun with it and the story that was told in their death. Yeah, so that was like a big component as well in terms of that design of what happens when guys die. It's like you just get more. Like don't worry about it. Just have fun with them dying. Like enjoy it. Yeah. And you mentioned the Animal Cultists. Someone actually on our Discord recently posted because the way they work in the game is if too many of them get together, they start summoning other monsters. And eventually, if like too many of them get together, they summon the Ballast and the world ends. And they were playing it, and too many of them got together, and their world ended. And they were like, "What do I do now?" I'm like, "Well, your world ended.
Yeah, there's nothing else.
Right.
There's nothing else to do. The world's over.
Yeah, all you guys are dead. It's over. You got to start again.
With The Last War, you do have this like alt cover with the white cover on it. And all of your hardcovers have been white. Was that a specific choice, or after the first one, did you just be like, well, the second one looks good in yellow and white too? And then, because The Last War is a little bit different than the previous ones, it doesn't have the kind of like creature with the yellow background and then a white version. What was was that purposeful to always have the white cover? And did you purposely want to do The Last War's cover a little bit different than the previous two?
Yeah, it was. So after the first one, yeah, it became like a purposeful choice then of, let's make the hardcover a different color, just so it stands out a bit differently. And if you're into collecting the hardcovers, they'll look one way and the soft covers will look another. And then with Last War, same decision around wanting that hardcover to have a specific piece of art. But actually, I was working on a version of the soft cover art just with a white background. And then one of the community posted up this amazing piece of work he'd done where it's the printing, like when you carve it out and then you print it. I can't remember what it's called now. It's got a specific name, light something graph or whatever. And I was like, that's so cool. Make me a cover. I will pay you. And they were like, what? I'm like, yeah, I love what you've done. Like, would you be up for making the official cover for the other version? And they were like, that would be amazing. So that's been a big part of all the people I've brought in to work on it. I've like looked for people within the community of Mörk Borg or within the Forbidden Psalm community, people who are just making cool stuff, who I'm like, I want to pay you to make stuff for me now. Like, I've had this success. I want to spread that out. So here's some money, make me a cool thing. So that's where that white cover for The Last War ended up coming from. And I'm super stoked with it. Like, he nailed it. It's so good.
It looks amazing. So do you have, I know Last War is still on Kickstarter. Are there any like future things that are like on the horizon for Forbidden Psalm after that?
Yeah.
That you're allowed to talk about?
Yeah, I think I can talk about what I want. I mean, no one Exalted Heroes told me I can't, so I'm just going to, and then if they're mad at me, they can be mad at me.
There you go.
I think I'm good. So I'm working on two other projects. One is at the moment called Project Mara, which is different to Forbidden Psalm in that it is a miniatures game version of Mothership. So I've taken the Mothership rules and I'm making a miniatures game out of that. That's in progress. I'm hoping to have that finished this year. Same kind of concept where it'll be a Mothership book. You can just run as a Mothership game. You can use it in the RPG. But hey, if you want to play with some miniatures, you can. A bit different in that it's entirely cooperative. It's not you versus another player. So the idea behind it is you're going to a station that has been abandoned for about 45 years. It's floating around the planet. It's called Legitimate Salvage is the official title of the book that's coming out. And the idea is that it's now become legitimate salvage. So all these crews are descending on it to try and salvage it and explore what happened on it. And that's that game. And then the other thing for Forbidden Psalm that I'm working on at the same time alongside this, because everybody has asked for it with Cyborg coming out, is are you gonna make a cyberpunk version? I'm like, yeah, of course I am. Like, I've already done the front cover and I've already done a bunch of art and started to write rules and flaws and feats and thinking about how hacking works. And so that's kind of in play test at the moment. So I play test it, write some rules, work out if the play test works, if what I wrote works on the tabletop. So that's in the process of being written at the moment. So those are the...
Is that kill sample process? Is that what it is?
Yeah, so that's kill sample process, yeah.
I saw it on your site with the big eye. The eye is cool. So
yeah, so I made that like piece of art a couple weeks ago, months ago maybe, as just like to get me inspired for like a more cyberpunk setting. So I was like, I'm gonna make a weird ass eye that's all distorted and
yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. So I made that, and then that's inspired like kill sample process will be the next Forbidden Psalm thing. Which I don't know when that'll come out, whenever I've kind of finished writing it. I don't really like putting things out for funding until I know it's done. So Last War is 99% written and done. It's out with playtesters. Any feedback they're giving will obviously be incorporated. The idea being that as soon as the back kit's finished, people get their PDFs, the book's out, they can start playing. They don't have to wait months and months after the Kickstarter's ended. And then they'll get their physical books whenever worldwide shipping and printing isn't on fire.
So eventually,
yeah, eventually. Well, you'll get your physical thing eventually. But yeah, so the idea being that there isn't this like huge delay. I don't personally, as quite a small creator, I want people to have confidence that, hey, you're going to get your thing pretty soon. Like it's finished already, Yeah, we definitely have big love for Kickstarter projects that are basically done when they hit the thing. And I understand that people need to fund sometimes for art and things like that. But I know we're big fans of Red Giant, and they did the same thing where they're like, we're basically done. We already have a proof copy of the book. It'll wrap. Kickstarter gives us money. We send you a PDF, and then it's good to go. So that's really great. And it sounds like we have years of Forbidden Psalm ahead of us, all across the board, from World War I to Mothership to Cyborg. So, and who knows what's going to come next? Do you feel like if Mörk Borg does anything different and new, you're going to kind of be inspired by that and just keep going with it? Potentially. I think it's as long as it inspires me. So like a lot of the community, for example, asked for a Western version, and being a white dude from Wales in the UK, I don't necessarily feel like I'm the best person to make a Western version of Forbidden Psalm. So I'm going to leave that for someone else to do. But yeah, definitely kind of make different versions of it. I really like the idea of it being this simple rule set where there's different settings. So whatever your flavor of setting you like, that's the one you can grab off the shelf and play. So I'd love to make lots of different versions and different settings. I've had some people ask for a Napoleon era version and other things like that. So yeah, I think as long as I'm interested enough in whatever I'm writing about, then I'll write it. And if, like I said, if one person wants it, I'll probably end up making it, because that's enough for me.
Gotcha. Well, then we will have to come up with some stuff and see what happens.
Yeah, send me some ideas for themes and I'll get working on it.
There you go. Well, we know Western shot down, so no gas pump.
Sorry.
But
just not sure I'm the right person to do that. I don't know anything about Western or the West.
I hear you.
Neither does anyone. They have an imaginary image. Like it's just that they romanticize it. I was like, no, it was terrible and it was kind of racist.
Yeah.
So
it's just gonna be a game where the minute you start, everybody dies of dysentery, and that's the game.
That's perfect. Yeah. That's super accurate. It sounds like you have a great understanding.
Forbidden Psalm Oregon Trail. We have it. We got it. The world just ends in shit. So yeah. So Kevin, thank you so much for coming on. This has been fantastic talking with you. And our conversation pre-stream and everything. We are very, very excited now to dig into Forbidden Psalm, because that's what we're going to do next here on the show after a little bit of Kickstarter stuff. Super appreciate it. Maybe next time when Project Mara or anything else comes out, we can give you another message and maybe have you on again. We'll talk about the Kickstarter a little bit. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, absolutely. And I just saw your cat pop up, which is the perfect mini in the expansion for Forbidden Psalm. There's a thing called the Kath Pluch, which is a giant cat, and it actually suggests that you use a house cat. So, I
have 4, so perfect.
Yeah, you've already got the mini for it.
I'm set up.
Hunter is the father of cats. So
I am the father of cats.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Very cool projects. All of these are very cool. Forbidden Psalm is just cool, Yeah. I'm really, really excited for the Mothership one. I really am super excited for that one. So
yeah, a lot of people on my Discord they keep saying, "When's this out? When's it coming?" And I'm like, "When I finish it, leave me alone."
There you go. Okay. Once again, thank you for being here. We are going to head to BRB for a little bit, just so we can fix our windows and do all this stuff. Say goodbye to Kevin. So we will be back shortly. And BRB, everybody. Hello, and welcome back to the Weekly Scroll Podcast. We're going to hop into our Kickstart the Podcast Zemo Zine Month edition here with Barkeep on the Borderlands. Hunter, take it away.
Ryan. Guys, it's Zemo. Okay, cool. So first today in our Kickstart the Podcast, I get to start today. We're going to talk about Barkeep on the Borderlands. Barkeep on the Borderlands is a system-neutral pub crawl, point crawl adventure by W.F. Smith / Prismatic Wastelands. Barkeep on the Borderlands is a system-neutral adventure that takes place in and around the pubs and taverns of a distant keep. It also introduces new procedures for running pub crawl adventures and simple rules for drinking and inebriation. Can you guys tell I took notes on this today? You and your friends go on an adventure in the keep during the festival, Raves of Chaos. This usually happy occasion is marred by the king dying from a slow-acting poison. The antidote delivery has gotten mixed up with deliveries to all the pubs during this festival, and a lot of hijinks ensues. It's very chaotic. Barking Over the Borderlands is a full-color 52-page zine. It is system neutral. It does have point crawl mechanics. It comes with a bunch of intertwined factions for you to use, 20 bars with random tables for patrons, encounters, events, drink specials, and more. This is a whole little adventure for you and your party to go on where they just get drunk and try to find this antidote and try not to die. And it is fantastic looking. The artwork is, I feel like when I say cute, like people are like, oh, cute, but the artwork's so fucking cute, bro. I love it. It's very whimsical. It's got a good vibe to it. I'm really excited. The book, the mock-up for the spread of the book looks really nice as well. And it's pretty affordable. I think just the PDF only pledge is $10 for a full color and PDF and all stretch goals. And it's nice for the lowest one. They're adding all the stretch goals in for the PDF version. But if you want to do all out, I mean, the highest tier is only, $40 if you want the zine PDF poster and coaster set. So very cool project. I'm actually really super stoked to get this. I actually might raise my pledge up from the PDF version because I kind of want the coaster set. I know it sounds dumb. I kind of want the coaster set.
It doesn't sound dumb. It's a bar crawl adventure that you get really coasters with.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking cool.
I honestly don't remember if I went with the 30 or the 40. I think I might have just gone with the physical coasters because I'll probably play it digitally anyway. So you get like the poster as a map anyway. So I think I went that, but I definitely went for the coasters too. So yeah, absolutely
I'm doing it.
Yeah, do it. And again, I started logging out of Kickstarter before we started doing Kickstart the Podcast, so I don't expose myself and all the money I've spent. But yeah, no, this looks super, super cool. I'm very excited for that. Did you get a chance to click on the link here? Does it actually take you to like their drinking rules? Because I remember seeing on their Twitter where they're like, I've read a lot of people's inebriation rules and they're not fun, but I made great ones. So did you get a chance?
I did not actually look at their inebriation rules. I'll be honest, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm slacking. I was too busy reading it to not to not click on the here. I'll do it now. But yeah, so that's Barking Over Runs. I think this is a project that is very much worth. I mean, if you have $10 and you want to add something fun for your adventures, we do a lot of dark games. If you want to add some whimsy into your game where you guys just getting drunk, and your murder hobos just get drunk in a town, like this is a great spot for them,
Well, I think the whole it starts in a tavern thing, this really takes it in a new direction.
Yeah, it really is. It's a fun play on, your adventure starts in the tavern. And I always like tools that make stuff like this easy. And I like the fact that they're just going to provide you a bunch of roll tables. It's like, you're going to walk into a tavern, you're going to roll on a bunch of tables and everything's pre-generated. So you don't have to, as the game master, you don't have to worry about I got to make this tavern. There's a guy in the corner with a hood and then all your characters go, who is he? I'm like, fuck, I don't know. I just made him up.
Yep. I've had way too many Bobs in my game because when you ask me the name of a character that I don't have a plan for, I have made it a three. It is Bob or Tom or Tim or Bill, and that is it. So it's not going to be interesting, and that's your signal to move on to someone else. So yeah, this looks super great, and it's clearly super funded. So yeah, no issues with making sure.
I think they're close. Their last stretch goal is they've unlocked all except one. They have a $20,000 stretch goal, which they're almost at, where they're going to get the person who did Ultraviolet Grasslands, which we haven't gone over, but Ryan and I have both read, to do rules for a pub. And if you haven't read that game, you should read that fucking game. That game's cool as shit.
Yeah, they've done the writer for that has done a bunch of stuff. They did stuff for OSE too. They did Let Us In. They've done a bunch of stuff. So really great writer. That'd be super cool to get them as well. And I think that last project's the one where it's not like 3 goblins in a trench coat. It's like a horse in a trench coat, right?
Let's go. Let's still scroll down and see. Oh yeah, it's a unicorn in a trench coat.
Oh, unicorn and trench coat. There we go. Unicorn and trench coat. Cool. So that's Barkeep on the Borderlands.
Barkeep on the Borderlands.
Cool. All right, definitely a good project. Definitely want to check that out. I am going to hop into a game called After the Darkness. That looks really, really cool.
God, it's such a fucking freaky. Like, it's really cool.
Honestly, as soon as I saw this, I was like, all right, I'm back in this.
Yeah.
This is a map exploration and horror game where you play as a family struggling to survive the apocalypse. And it looks like it has funded. It is over the goal with 75 backers. It's got 4 days left. So that's awesome to see. After the Darkness is an apocalyptic game of horror, family, and selfishness. The sun disappeared and a dense fog covered the earth, killing millions of people in just a few months and collapsing all of its institutions, structures, and creations. Although that does not seem to be the greatest threat anymore, dying of hypothermia is not the first cause of death. The sky fervently screams and it seems heavier than before. Confusing movements and violent stampedes are heard in the distance, coming from the darkest shadows, the desolate railroads, and ruined cities. Something is out there, creeping through the openings of our planet, taking advantage of this cataclysm. Cover looks amazing. This is the cover of the rulebook right here, and it comes with 2 zines. And it says that the game is a game of Abrahamic horror and survival based on the same world as another upcoming game, Hypostasis. I'm going to click on that because the website for this is amazing. The art that comes on here, yeah, it's very, again, it's got that Abrahamic horror vibe.
Yeah,
but if you look
totally.
If you look at some of the art, I'm a huge fan. So I'm not going to read through a lot of this. You want to go check out the Hypostasis, because if this is the precursor for this game, I want both games. So that's one of the reasons I backed the other one. So again, not going to go through the website, but highly recommend going and checking that out. In the game, you play as a family trying to protect your loved ones and establish yourself in a safe zone for everybody. And because of that, you are forced to explore the apocalyptic land outside, evading monstrosities, struggling to eat, drink, and sleep. You basically play as an entire family, and there are different lineages of families within the game. So when you play, you're either the entire family or individual members in the family. So it kind of gives you a little bit of that like macro micro play we've been kind of running into a lot with the games that we've been reviewing. So really like interesting. That. It kind of feels like what is that horror movie with the monsters and Emily Blunt?
A Quiet Place.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of A Quiet Place, but a little bit less creature feature and a little bit more like The Mist. So yeah, really, really excited to do that. And like I said, I really like this concept of play as a whole family or play as individual family members, which is really cool. They do give some previews to some of the monsters in it. I love the deranged policeman. Great piece of art here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Top off. And it looks like throughout the game, as you continue to explore, things get like more and more weird. So it starts out as these kind of like humans that are a little bit off, but then it becomes more like kind of creature-y before like the fog and everything kicks in. So looks like a really, really cool, really great game. I'm super excited to see how it comes out. It does come with a comic too, if you want to get a little bit of it more of a story before you start the game. So you can back it at that level. The lowest level PDF is only $7, so extremely inexpensive. And if you want to go balls to the wall, you can do The Last Man, which is everything: the comic, the zine, PDF, print, hand-signed illustrations, and you'll be included in one of the books as a character, and you get a piece of original art. But if you don't want to go that high, it's only $70 or $50 to get like everything plus some like art and things like that. So relatively inexpensive for the zine at $7, or for the PDF at $7. And if you just want the zine, it is only $12. So great price for a game that looks really, really cool. And if it is a precursor to the game linked to the website, that looks really exciting too. So this is After the Darkness on Kickstarter. You only have 4 days left to back it. So if you listen to this on podcast the day our podcast drops, you'll only have 1 or 2 days left. check that out. And that's it for me.
All right. Next, we are on to 13 Hunters by Tony from Plus One, and art by, I don't know their actual name, but it's Nuclear Obelisk on Twitter. The art is fantastic. 13 Hunters is a zine compendium of 13 renowned bounty hunters from across orb space, which I always really like. It's basically a book that gives you dossiers and information and some vignettes on these 13 renowned bounty hunters that you can drop into whatever setting you're in or using. It's system agnostic. And it's very cool. I did tweet at them and say that I would get one of the hunters tattooed on me if this made. So I do have a vested interest in this because I do want one of those hunters tattooed on me because they look very cool. But yeah, it's this weird, it almost reminds me of, actually, it totally reminds me of Kill 6 Billion Demons. These weird, like, odd characters in this art style that, like, are not tied down to any one place and are almost seem like multi-dimensional. I really like it. So 1300 is a 32 page zine. It's full color. Right now, they are at about $900 out of they're 30% funded. They have 13 days to go. And I think this is a really cool art project and art book. I really like to see it make. Yeah, that's where we're at.
It does. I know I have not gone nearly as deep. And by nearly deep, I mean, I haven't even scratched the surface of the 6 Billion Demons. I know you've told me about that a bunch. But as soon as you said that, even the cover art and everything really reminds me of the cover art from it too. Yeah. Because it's a gorgeous art style.
It is. It's an amazing art style. And the art style is definitely not exactly the same, but like you could definitely take these characters and drop them in there and they'd fit,
Absolutely.
Also, you should all read Kill 6 Billion Demons. All of you should. It's free online. Go read it.
So anything that Tony Vicenda does is definitely well worth going to check out.
Absolutely.
So definitely hop onto this project and check it out. It is on GameFound, as projects are kind of getting off Kickstarter and moving to other things. So I know that Adam Vast just did his project on GameFound and was able to successfully fund pretty well. So why don't we do our best out there to support non-Kickstarter campaigns and go check this out. It looks really, really cool. And if it funds, Hunter will get one of the 13 hunters. So
yeah,
maybe we'll put up a poll or which one and where.
Maybe we'll put a poll. Maybe pull on which one, not where. It's going on my thigh, y'all. So
oh, come on, like really high up the thigh though, and its hands out like this. Yeah. So 1300s look sick. Tony and Plus One XP is great. Good people and always does amazing projects. So definitely go check that out over at GameFound. That's 1300s.
That's 1300s.
Cool. And then our last one today is a really interesting project called Signal to Noise. This is actually over on game1tabletop.com. I had not seen this kind of funding site prior to this, but I was very excited for Signal to Noise just in general because the concept is really, really interesting. So let me just read the beginning part. The signal arrived while our grandparents were young, an invitation to humanity from the stars. Driven by our curiosity and the proof that we were not alone in the universe, we constructed the Generation Fleet, vast vessels to carry humanity into the void and take our place among the stars. But the journey could only ever be for a select few, tens of thousands from a population of over 10 billion. The selection process ripped apart families, forged new bonds, and burned relationships. Those that ventured out were lauded as heroes, while those that remained returned to their lives as loved ones grew ever more distant. This is just one story of that journey of two souls separated by the void of space trying to maintain a semblance of connection. So,
hell
it
yeah.
It is an interstellar epistolary people. Epistolary game that chronicles the relationship between two individuals as one of them departs the solar system forever on a generation ship. As the distance between them increases and errors creep into their messages, they must come to terms with the knowledge that they will never see each other again and eventually answer the question of how long they can maintain the connection they once had. So you take turns drawing prompts and composing messages to your counterpart, and each card provides a personal prompt and progresses a unique major societal event. Before sending their message, players must introduce noise through letter replacements driven on the cards they have drawn. And as the distance increases, so too does the noise until messages are rendered unreadable. So it is, in summation, with the words that I can describe this as, two people are literally, one is leaving the galaxy to head to another place, never to be seen again. And the game is those two people sending messages back and forth until the distance becomes so big that they are unable to even kind of interpret the messages that are being sent because there's too much noise in the way. That's just a heartbreaking game.
Am I about to start crying? Like, what, dude? Yeah, I'm gonna fucking back this one.
Yeah, it's gonna hurt. It kind of reminds me. It kind of reminds me a little bit of another project. I don't know if we got a chance to talk about this one, or if I even have it on the list here. I'll have to. No. I will drop it in somewhere to talk about. But there's another game that we backed that just backed recently about a relationship that, like, these two people loved each other, and then love is ended, and you play out the last conversation that they have before they don't ever see each other again. And I tweeted at them originally and was like, hey, you just gotta, like, my soul cried a little bit just from the description of that game.
God, why am I in the club crying right now? Like, what
right?
That's so sad. Sorry, is this an Adam Bass project?
Right. But yeah, this looks amazing. And this reminds me of that project a little bit. I like these 2-player emotional exploration games. It's currently a 24-page game edited by MZ Whisker, thanks to support of early access backers. It's got some great art from Val Sinace. And if you look at it as I scroll through the page here, the art looks wonderful. And it is put out by Craig Duffy of Lunar Shadow Designs. So it looks like an amazing project. The zine looks gorgeous. Black is my favorite color, except, as we know, black is not really a color. It's the absence of color. If I had to pick any other color, it would probably be patina. I can't tell you how obsessed I am with the color patina. And the color on this, with this kind of, it looks almost a little bit of like clip art style. They look like it's put together, is gorgeous. And I think that the way it's done, even on the cover, where like the end of noise starts to get a little broken up, and there's this huge dish with this girl like looking out into space. It really sets the tone early from the cover on. So this seems like a really emotional, really, really fun, interesting game to check out. It is funded. It does have 7 days left, so it will end on the 26th. So go check it out. But man, we are just hitting some great games on Zemo.
This is a really interesting game too,
right?
Like it's funny because, you know, I think like historically tabletop games is such a like fight monsters thing that there are these more emotional experiences coming out, and people are like really into them, and I love that, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, again, that's one of the reasons we're big like Adam Vast stands is he has they have a specific kind of drive to create these like feelings games, I think is the way that he describes them, is that it's not just about, like you said, like fighting monsters and stuff like that. It's about like kind of trying to harness the emotion. And that's why they do so many games based on like albums. Because if I ever did a Sick Transit Gloria album, you know, like a friggin' brand new game, I mean, that was college for me, man. I'm older than you. But like freshman year of college was just like brand new second album, and you know the feels that I get from even just looking at the album cover. I can imagine, you know, someone like Adam Vass, who's, I mean, also the basis for La Dispute, you know, picking some of their favorite albums to do games for has got to be like, there's got to be a lot of stuff attached to it. So yeah, super into the feelings games, the emotions games, and this feels like one. So Signal to Noise, definitely check that out. Game on Tabletop. And I think that's all we're going to cover for Zemo this time. Do we have one more week of Zemo officially?
Yes.
The 26th. Yeah.
Is the 26th, right?
Yeah. So we have a couple of projects we'll try to hit next week for that, so we can wrap up our at least Zemo coverage of a very small number.
So many. There's no way that we could hit all of the ones that we backed. Like, no. There's just no way.
I tweeted out I think a little bit ago about, hey, like, thank you so much for having different end dates because my wallet appreciates it. And then like 10 projects ended in like 2-day period, and I just kept getting emails, and I was like, oh my god, this hurts so much. Like, I love these games, but man. Oh my god.
Dude, this past week I just kept getting messages like funded. I'm like, oh fuck, man.
Yeah. Absolutely destroyed my bank account in a way that I can handle for what we get for it. But it was a week for sure. So we'll see how all of that goes with getting those projects in, and then I can only imagine we're going to talk about a bunch from here on the show. So, all right, getting into
to talk about what we're talking about today, man. I'm gonna be totally honest. Now I don't want to talk about this, and I want to talk about his upcoming The Last War, because that is so my speed. But this is a fantastic game. I'm not joking. I do want to talk about this, but the Last War one, it seems like it's exactly what I want. So,
are you a big WW1 buff?
I'm a big history guy.
Okay. All right. I liked when History Channel told history, and it wasn't just like Nazi occultism and ancient aliens. Back in the day, like a lot of really good World War I, World War II stuff. So maybe we'll get that with The Last War, except that the world's ending. But we are today talking about Forbidden Psalm, and that just means that when The Last War drops, we're gonna have to talk about that too.
We're definitely gonna fucking talk about that game. So
absolutely. So hitting this, as we talked about in the interview, I got the soft covers, which are yellow for the first 2 editions of the book. And the hardcovers are white. Here's the thing, man. I wish the hardcovers were yellow, because I picked the yellow specifically because I love the yellow.
Yeah.
But I really wanted hardcover. So I backed the hardcover Last War one. But you get both images in the PDF here. The white cover with the Johan Noor art of the Corpse Collector ripping this dude's head off. I can't tell you how many times I looked at the cover and didn't realize there was a head in that guy's hands.
I'm going to be really honest. I didn't realize it until you just pointed it. I was so centered on just like how cool this and horrifying this guy looks, you know? Oh yeah, he's my little buddy back here. So
yeah. So the feet are up in his hands, and I didn't realize that it was like his neck at the bottom, and then the blood coming to the head that's all like grimacing and stuff. So you get both Borg covers here, and yes, I'm looking at the single pages, not the spreads. First and foremost, we do realize that the table of contents not hyperlinked.
It's not hyperlinked.
Not hyperlinked.
I mean, this is like a fairly light book, and so it kind of makes sense that's not, you know. But
it's 85 pages though.
Oh, that's right. It is. I'm looking at the spreads and not the singles, so it's 47 for me. So
yeah. But you know how I feel. It's you know, in a world where a lot of people aren't getting together and you're looking at digital stuff, sometimes the PDF really increases, or the hyperlinks and bookmarks really helps with functionality. Is it bookmarked? Not bookmarked either. Okay. So yeah. Obviously that'll come up 10 times because I can't shut the fuck up about it. But yeah. Do you want to kick off Forbidden Psalm here?
Yeah, I would love to. First, this page, right? This piece of art is a fantastic piece of art, and it's a little understated, so it looks like a background, so you can kind of scroll past it, but you can go, but when you go back, you're like, oh, it's super interesting. It's like this old man with this like tree over him, and it's night. The mad wizard hides in his castle, only appearing for those willing to undertake his bidding. We go down to this art piece is like fantastic, and there's actually like a lot of really, really good art in this book.
Yeah. I know that they do a bunch of art, but they do like the whole art from dead people business too. I love the way, what's also interesting, cool about a lot of old art is a lot of it is very similar in the way that they did these kind of like woodcut style drawings. So you can use a lot of different dead people's art and still keep a consistent theme, which is great. So, yeah. But yeah.
Onto the Mad Wizard. Is that a U starting that? I
thought it was a K.
Is it a K? Crypix?
Am I completely wrong? I thought it was. I think there's other times where. Listen,
I believe you. So
no, it's a V. It's a V. I read it as a K the entire time because literally like 3 lines down it says it right there.
Oh man, I'm good at stuff. Verpix the Mad Wizard bids the desperate, brave, and foolish to venture into the ruins of Kyrgyz. He seeks, he seeks the Forbidden Psalm, a nameless scripture Verpix claims can stop the darkness. Whether there is truth to the Mad Wizard's ramblings or not, his coffers run deep. Promise riches await those strong, quick, or cowardly enough to survive, bearing back the treasure from the lost age. And in these bleak times, good coin is hard to come by. This is going to be one of those days where I have a hard time reading. I can always tell the first page and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a good reading day for Hunter. Not today, baby. And then we have this really cool like skull with a hood on it. Keeping with our very horrifying Mörk Borg-esque theme. Yeah, Verpix, the Mad Wizard. Because there's some miniatures. Forbidden Psalms is a 22 millimeter miniature, or sorry, 28 millimeter miniatures agnostic game. You can use any miniatures you already own or build custom minis for this game. Grab some dice, some miniatures, a tape measure, a 2 foot by 2 foot table, and you are ready to play. And I love that. I actually have always really wanted to get into these like miniature war games, but they are so expensive to break into, and the rules are like really complicated. And like I've proven to myself that I can learn complicated rules, but that doesn't mean that I want to, Exactly. And so this is a great entry because like it's not fucking complicated at all, and you can use. I'm gonna fucking use Lego guys to play this later, Measurements are in inches. Sorry, metric heathens. You can convert 1 inch to 2.5 centimeters, and you can pre-measure. Dice rolls are abbreviated DR. Determines the outcomes. Pretty much, it's very Mörk Borg, right? So the Forbidden Psalms generally it's DR12 for most things, meaning you must roll at least a 12 or above to succeed. Modifiers, there are modifiers, right? Stats, feats, flaws, weapons, they give you modifiers. Going down to creating a warband. Or just something to say?
No, I was just like, oh, that isn't in that page. I do like that it's a DR12 because again, it's Mörk Borg.
So easy.
And Mörk Borg is pretty much DR12 based, so because it's compatible.
Yeah, and like the moment it's so easy to transition from regular Mörk Borg to this. Like it's so effortless, because it works the same. Creating a warband. So your warband is going to be like your party. To explore the ruins of Kyrgyz, you will need a warband of desperate souls consisting of 5 miniatures. Follow these steps. 1, select 5 models to use. 2, assign each model a name, and there's a really great page after this where we can roll for names, and I think that we should. 3, allocate stats. 4, roll a flaw for each model. 5, roll a feat for each model. 6, spend your 50 gold on equipment, and 7, select a spellcaster and roll for scrolls. I really like this because it just told me how to make all my characters. Like, I know like every book does, but when it starts out with like it's a 5-step process, a 7-step process, here are all the steps. I'm like, cool. I take so many questions away,
So easy. And
then
again,
you see the art on this page?
Dude, yeah, with like the picture of the warband at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's dope. I like it a lot. Again, if there was a hyperlink here to page 75, that would be super dope.
If only. So, go on to the book of names.
Yeah.
You want to roll?
Yeah. Should I roll a title and a name?
Yeah. Let's roll a title and a name. So just 2D100s.
2D1 hundos. All right, I got 28 and 92. So my guy would be Motocross the Pew Pew.
Wait, sorry, what was the second one?
Pew Pew. The Pew Pew.
Pew pew.
The Pew Pew. Yep, exactly.
Hell yeah. Very cool.
What'd you get?
I did not roll. I was letting you roll.
I thought you said you were rolling on the...
Listen,
with 5 people in a warband. Yeah.
That's very true. Okay. Our second character is, let's see, 18 and 19. Now it's weird. 18 and 19. So I have John Eternal the Deadly. Ooh, that's a cool one. I'm John Eternal the Deadly. Very cool. Yeah, I love this. A lot of the names in here are very fun. They're very cool. The names are cool because they're weird. And shout out 81 is definitely a shout out to our buddy, friend of the show, Johan Noor.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's Noor.
Yeah. What did you got? What was your title?
John Eternal the Deadly.
You got the Deadly and I got the Pew Pew.
Yeah, you got the pew pew. I got the Deadly.
I got
a fucking badass, bro. And you're the pew pew.
Pew pew. Okay.
All right, moving on to stats. You want to take over?
Sure. So stats. Great page here. I love the black and the white and the gray. Super easy to generate each of your model stats. Take one of the following stat lines: +3, +1, 0, or -3. That's pretty brutal. I was like, yeah. Oh damn. I thought it was like maybe -1. Nope, -3.
-3.
Or you get +2, +2, -1, -2. So extremes or kind of like a mixed bag in the middle. I really enjoy that there's 2 kind of standard arrays. I think that Red Giant had like 4 standard arrays, which was really nice to see kind of a mix of how you want to do things. And then you assign those to each of the models using the same 4 stats you get from Mörk Borg: agility, presence, strength, and toughness. Again, because this is compatible with Mörk Borg. Health points equals HP. HP is 8 plus toughness. Your example. So here's the thing, and I meant to say something when we were doing the interview. Nifel is my character's name in our long Mörk Borg game.
Oh yeah.
So the entire book here uses Nifel as an example, and I was like, that's my guy. I'm not a hermit, but that's my guy. I am a prophet of a dead god.
Oh yes, you are. I do remember that character. Okay, cool.
Yeah, he's still alive.
Yeah,
for now. Somehow. So the example of that they give for all of this is Nifel the Hermit is assigned an agility of +3, presence of 0, strength of -3, and toughness of +1. So they get 9 HP. HP resets between encounters. That's it. That's how easy it is. And I love that there is a heart on the back of this page because the Mörk Borg page for HP is just like a giant heart. Love that. So I love the flaws and the feats so much. That's what we're getting into next. I think that's like step 3 or 4. Like you give your minis a name, you give them a flaw and a feat. We will go. There's a D20 list. Do you want to roll one and I'll roll one and we'll.
Yeah, you roll yours. I'll read mine right now. So for the flaw for John Eternal the Deadly is malnutrition. He has -1 on strength-based tests, so maybe not that deadly.
I also got malnutrition, so I re-rolled, and my guy was Motocross the Pew Pew. And he got a 16, which is a loner. He gets a -1 to all tests when within 2 inches of a friendly model. So
okay.
I really like how you can use these. Like, clearly they're written mechanically for like the minis game, but if you look at like 6 greasy hands suffer -1 to agility tests, that works.
Why is it's so on like message for Mörk Borg because it's gross, you know? Like you're just like you read the shit, and you're just like that's fucking gross. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Like you have greasy fucking hands. It's like fuck, man, Jesus, wash your fucking hands, guy.
Yeah.
I do also like that it's everything's converted for inches for this like war play. But it'd be very easy for me to be like, yeah, well, whatever. If we're not playing the war version of this game. The tactical version, like you can very easily convert this. Like, if you're next to somebody, you get this disadvantage or whatever.
Well, if you think about it from like a grid combat, that like one grid is an inch, like one square, so 3 inches would be like 15 feet. So if you're within 15 feet. But the thing with Mörk Borg 2 is you don't really use like grids for anything. Like your movement is basically like walking across an average sized room. That's movement. So it's just like you could easily do like a rough, like, I think you're close enough. Your putrid stench fucks with your party. Really like those.
Yeah, you pick your nose till you bleed shit, you know, like that.
Yeah, so good. And I love, and then number 1, if you roll a 1, is cursed. You roll twice and apply all of it. So sucks to suck.
That's so fucking brutal.
Do you want to roll for the feats as well?
Oh, I already rolled for a feat. Yeah, I have feint / disarm. Instead of making an attack during a close combat, make an agility test. To feint the enemy's attack, preventing a successful hit. If the enemy also fails to hit, they are considered to have dropped their weapon and are disarmed. So, you know, maybe John Eternal is the deadly. He's just a little weak.
There you go. He's a little weak. He's a little weak. I got clawed nails. I replaced fists with claws. Claws have D6 and are agility based. I think when we read later, fists, like everybody has fists. If you don't have a weapon, you can just punch it.
Makes sense.
So I don't get, I get claws. Yeah. I do love though, I mean, whether I like the mechanic or not, the number 18, the lucky goblin foot. Love that. Model can reroll 1 dice roll per scenario, but has -1 equipment slot. Love it.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a cool one. That's a really good one, actually.
Yeah. Well, and 2 in Mörk Borg, though, goblins aren't just like little piece of shits. They're like
cursed people.
They're cursed, and you can be cursed by a goblin, or you turn into a goblin unless you kill the goblin. So you get that lucky little goblin foot.
You got the goblin lucky foot with you. It's like, yeah, goblins are disturbing.
Good times.
Good times.
Equipment and weapons. Models have 5 equipment slots plus their strength. So the example given was that Nephil the Hermit has a -30 to strength, so he only gets 2 item slots. That sucks. Costs are given in gold, as the Mad Wizard Vriprix only pays in gold. You convert to Mörk Borg and supplements. 1 gold equals 10 silver, rounding up. Each item below takes up 1 slot. So there's only 6 things listed. Bandages, lantern, torch, backpack, potions, and ammo. They're all between 1 and 6 gold. Potions are the only things that are higher, and that's for healing. Backpack like gives you basically an additional spot, because so it counts as 1 equipment slot but provides 2 additional slots. So does that mean you get 1 extra slot with the backpack because it takes up 1 and gives you 2?
No, I think it means that it takes up 1 of yours and gives you. Oh, I mean, I guess technically, yeah, you are really only getting 1 extra slot,
right? Because you can't just like you can't take up 2. You can't take up 1 and then get 3 would be like getting the 2 to take up the 1. Gotcha. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah. And then armor. No, it's
because I do like as we go through the items and stuff, it really keeps with Mörk Borg where it's like it's sparse, right? You really only have the necessities. You really only have like the even the weapons are very simple, and that's kind of like the charm of Mörk Borg, right? It's like the end of the world. Things are not going great. This is not 5e. You don't have an overabundance of anything positive, and any like actual magical stuff that you might end up getting kind of usually has a downside, and it's really not part of character creation outside of scrolls and stuff. So I like it stays with that.
Well, even in Mörk Borg, like one of the most basic weapons you can get is just a femur. And there are skeletons everywhere. So you're not really far from at least picking up a femur. wherever you're at. So like you just said, like with things being sparse, just being able to pick up and go with some like light stuff is definitely a plus. And they definitely keep the vibe for this. Armor, to convert armor from Mörk Borg, take the average result of the armor dice and round down. For example, light armor has a D2 damage reduction in Mörk Borg, and Forbidden Psalm that translates to 1. So basically, light armor is 1, medium is 2, heavy is 3. I really like that a lot. It's super clean. It takes up, the heavy though takes up 2 slots. There's a helm that you can do too that has 0 to your armor, but you can't be dazed by an attack because you got your helmet on. That's right. Wear your helmets, kids. Yeah. And shield can be destroyed to ignore 1 attack after all rolls. Again, love that. Super clean. Really, really enjoy all of the way that the armor works in here. And you can kind of tell too. I know that Kevin, when we were talking to him, he said, this used to be a lot more complicated. And then I went back and was just like, does it need all this shit? You can tell this was edited, like really. And I don't mean like for words and stuff. I mean like there's a bunch of stuff and you like don't need that, don't need that, don't need that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good. I really enjoy that a lot. Are there any weapons that stick out to you that you want to chat about?
I'm gonna roll on the weapon table actually.
Do it. The only thing that I don't see that we are big fans of on our show is the good old Spyhander.
Oh yeah.
I don't see the Spyhander.
Well. Too bad, man. We're gonna take several points off this game scored.
No Spyhander. Dunzo. Maybe it'll be something different later. Biggest thing they have is the Bastard Sword at a D10. I also love that the weapons do basically the way the weapons work, because again, we're looking at something that the podcast can't see.
Right.
You get 50 gold for your equipment. And then we're looking at a weapons thing. It's the weapon name, their damage, a special move if they have one, the modifier you use to hit with it, and then the cost of it. So looking at the Bastard Sword, it's a D10, which is the highest damage dice you can get. On a critical, you can choose to destroy the enemy's weapon, which is dope.
Oh, fuck. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, super cool. It uses strength, obviously, but it costs 10 gold. That's also the most expensive weapon on the game. That would be 1/5 of your entire equipment cost. So what did you roll?
I rolled 12. I got the Horseman's Pick, which is a D6 damage, and it has the special quality of Cruel, which means it always deals at least 1 damage regardless of armor.
Nope.
Which is fucking cool. It's really cool. It only costs 4 gold. It's a nice little affordable one. I would honestly, if I ran through this with my party, I would make them roll for everything, just like we did for Mörk Borg. I don't want you to have choices with your characters in this game. Like, you're supposed to suffer a little bit. It's the fun of it.
Well, so I mean, but I think this game would be similar to running 12 years in that it's not like you would have a party of 5 people as your warband. You can do co-op or like versus play with 2 people. So you would just roll literally everything for all your warband. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yes.
Dope. Yeah. Well, the Horseman's Axe at Cruel is pretty sick, because I can't tell you how many times in Mörk Borg I'm like, yeah, I actually finally fucking hit with my -3 modifier. Cool. Wait a minute. I rolled a 2 and they have D3 armor. I do no damage. God fucking damn it. So to always do 1 damage would be pretty sick. I think like if you look at it statistically over time, you would probably average a really good amount of damage depending on your modifier, especially if you went low. Like Nefel the Hermit using a strength weapon with a -3, at least you always do 1 damage. So that's pretty dope. Yeah. I really like this a lot. Are there any other interesting kind of modifiers like Cruel? Oh, Bleeding is another cool one that's really good. 1 damage per activation until healed, and it ignores armor. So that's pretty cool. I really like the special abilities here. Do you want to...
Blinded's really cool as well. Model cannot make ranged attacks and gets a -3 to all attacks. Like I like the little. It's cool. There's not too much extra for these like special qualities. There's enough to make it really satisfying. You can get some cool stuff in. It's once again very streamlined.
Absolutely. Do you want to do scrolls?
Yeah, scrolls. When creating a warband, you can select one model to be a caster, be a little magic boy. Recruiting a caster costs 5 gold, and they come equipped with 2 random scrolls, 1 clean and 1 unclean scroll. You can also buy them as additional items. All spells have a limited range of 12 inches. Same. You cannot use scrolls with shields or heavy armor. Models that find scrolls can use them as per spellcasting rules. So we have. Do you want to roll a d10? See what scrolls we get?
Absolutely.
I'm gonna roll one as well. Let's see. I got 9, so I got Golden Flare for my clean scroll. Rolling clean scrolls. We'll roll unclean here. It's like Golden Flare. Target model must pass a presence test or is blinded for 1 round.
Oh.
Solar Flare, that shit. Is that Dragon Ball? Yeah.
I got 5 Visions of Tomorrow. Target model must flee as per morale rules. Nice.
You just scare them away. They can see their death in the future, and they're like, "Nah, fuck that. I'm out."
Nah, I'm out.
I'm out.
I really like Not Dead Yet. That was one of my favorite ones. A dead model is awakened with 1 HP and a new flaw. Also, just because the flaws are dope. So, you gotta get some greasy hands.
Really good one.
Yeah.
God, dude. I don't know why that one specifically bothers me so bad. Like, it makes me a little sick to my stomach. Like, just like, oh, God, wash your fucking hands. Don't touch stuff, man.
Because there's some things that people do that are just fucking gross, and we've all experienced it, you know?
Okay, unclean scrolls. Let's move on. Unclean scrolls. We're going to both roll D10 for unclean scrolls. I got 6, which is One-Eyed King. The target creature becomes invisible and cannot be targeted by any attack or spell. Target is ignored by monsters. Lasts until the creature makes a test of any kind. You just fade out, yeah.
A little Tokyo Ghoul action in there. I got number 8, the Eternal Sleep. Target creature makes a presence test and falls asleep on a failure. Wakes up if they take any damage. Friendly models can wake them up as an action when within 1 inch. It's cool. I like that a lot.
I'm glad I got One-Eyed King because it's actually my favorite one, and for a couple reasons. One, it's a spell about becoming invisible, and it's actually like faded out, and I just like that. And also, the in the Kingdom of the Blind, the one-eyed man is king. Like, I just like that. It's like a callback. I assume it's called like to that saying, but I don't know. I like it. Thematically, it's cool.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, that makes sense. Look at that. Look at you. I really like Doom, obviously. All models and creatures within 12 inches, including allies and the caster, must make a presence test. On a failure, take D10 damage, ignoring armor. Any failure to cast this scroll is considered a fumble. Like, you couldn't get more like, if you succeed, everything's fucked, and if you fail, you're super fucked.
You're totally fucked.
Yeah. But like, why would you even even your allies get D10 damage? Like, you could literally wipe out both war parties in one reading.
Yeah.
So
pretty cool.
Yeah.
We're playing the game. So yeah, this game is really interesting because it is like a tactical war game. There are scenarios which I guess is not really unusual for tabletop games. Like, we all have adventures that they give us. I don't often think of them as scenarios, right? But there are scenarios in this. So for the setup for the game, you're going to pick a scenario, which is on page 29, not hyperlinked. You're going to set up the board, determine conditions, page 44, deploy, and then determine who goes first for initiative, right? Each round of the game, determine initiative for that round. Take turns, activate monsters, if any in play, and then end the round. I'm activating a model. When you select a model to activate, it can perform a movement and then an action. And the way that makes it sound says, and then an action. So not action, then movement. You have to move first, then action. Each model gets a single activation per round. If the model wishes to move, it must move before it performs an action, like I just said. If it performs an action, it turned over. It ends right there. If a feat, status, or other rule triggers when a model is activated, you must trigger the effect at the start of the activation before you move. Makes sense? Very plain, simple. What you got?
You know what I like about this? I know we're going to be reading a lot of rules because this is pretty much like...
It's pretty much just rules. Yeah.
It's just rules, right? One of the things I really, really love about this is how fucking simple the rules are written. Like, I feel like there is no bullshit language. It's very, very clear what's trying to be said. And like you said, you're like, when you said, and then an action, so I assume that means movement has to go first. Like the very next line, it says the movements must go first. So I haven't really I don't remember reading anything in this and being like, I'm not quite sure about this rule. They all seem to be written like very concisely and very just like plain.
Absolutely.
This is what it is.
And this is a criticism that we've had of other books when they write rules that aren't necessarily even hard. Like the rules are not hard to intake mentally, but the way they're written is a little convoluted. And this is like, no, none of that. This is 100%. It's like, this is how it works. I'm like, okay,
exactly.
Fantastic. Yeah. I would, if you can write it for like children, essentially, like perfect. But yeah,
right. Like Ben Milton does for Nave, fifth graders.
Honestly, that's such a good tactic, you know, because then anyone can read it.
I read this really incredibly sad statistic that 70% of Americans read at a 6th grade reading level or less. So remember that when you're writing your games.
Honestly, that is very sad. Public education. Okay, cool. Going on to actions. Actions. You can make a ranged attack. You can, make a melee attack. You can use a piece of equipment or a feat. You can use a scroll, cast a spell, and it says, and likely die. Pick up something, drop item within 1 inch of you, interact with treasure or scenario items. If you do a thing, essentially it is an action. Doesn't seem like talking as an action, but that makes sense because it's a tactical game. But yeah, if you do a thing, it's an action. Deployment. Before the first round of the game, this is so interesting because I'm so not used to reading like miniature war game rules, and I know more or less how they work, and deployment's like a big thing in those, right? So like before the first round of the game, roll initiative to determine who places models first, then alternate between players placing a model one at a time until all models are placed. Models must be placed within 6 inches of the board edge, or based on scenario rules, because there are going to be some individual like instances for scenarios where stuff is placed. Initiative is you roll a d20, highest number selects the model first to activate. Making tests, all tests, unless specified, are DR12, which we talked about before, very Mörk Borg, right? Roll a d20, got to hit 12 or above. Fumble, rolling 1 before applying modifiers is always a failure, and it's called a fumble. And then a crit, obviously, is rolling a 20 unmodified. Very straightforward.
I also really like the examples of play. Like every kind of batch of new rules has an example of play, which we've talked about before, is just really, really nice to see. And I really also like that it keeps the same character throughout the entire book, so that it's basically builds a character and everything with you as you go. It's Nephil the Hermit the whole way. So with stats and weapons and everything, you're like, okay, I totally get it because I know it was a -3, so it carries over to that one. So I really enjoy that they do that.
Yeah, it's sorry, I'm moving my mic around. I'm coming in pretty hot apparently, which I have no idea why, because I didn't change a single setting.
You just hot, Hunter.
I'm just really excited about. I am really excited about this game. Like, I like miniature games. Like, I like war games. I want to play more of these stuff. So cool. Movement. A model can move a number of inches equal to 5 plus their agility. Right. So everyone has a base of 5, and then you add your agility modifier. So if your agility is -1, you fucking kind of suck, man. You got 4 inches you can move. You can move in any direction or combination of directions up to the maximum movement of a model. Terrain smaller than 1 inch can be moved up for free. Terrain over 1 inch must be climbed. Models have a climbing speed of half of their movement speed and must end their movement on a flat surface. Models can jump gaps 3 inches or less, but must pass an agility test to do so, DR12, right? On failure, they take 1 damage per inch they fall, rounded down. On a fumble, they also gain a new injury, and I really like that. Models can move off the board edge, are treated as survived, and no longer participate in the scenario. So if they run off the board edge, they're out of the scenario, but they live, right? I like that. It lets you add terrain, and you can you can put books from your bookshelf out, and it be terrain, and then just move over it. You want to go over for combat?
Sure. And again, another example of play.
Yeah.
Really love that. Yeah. So combat, 4 steps. That's it. So easy. I don't think we've had more than I think character creation had 7. I don't think there's been more than 4 or 5 since then.
Yeah.
Super straightforward. Combat, check range for number 1. Number 2 is check stat modifier to apply based on weapon. Step 3 is roll attacks, and step 4 is apply damage. I don't know how it could be any easier than that. Are you able to hit it? Yeah. If so, add your stats, roll your thing, and apply the damage. Close combat. To perform close combat attack, your model must be within 1 inch of another model. It's a DR12 test plus the modifiers. And you can check on the weapons page on page 15, hyperlink. However, close combat is risky. I really enjoy this part, actually. Close combat is risky, and your opponent can also attack you back at the same time, but at a -3 to their roll. I love that.
Brutal. Yeah.
Because I feel like counterattacking is a very underutilized rule in a lot of RPGs, where it's pretty much just I get my turn and then you get your turn, and there's just that without a back and forth. So I really like that you get one at disadvantage. In combat,
there is back and forth,
Of course, yeah. And I like that it's not completely separated by this is my 6 seconds and that's your 6 seconds. Yeah. Both roll to hit and then roll for damage for any successful hits either model achieve. This -3 is negated in close combat if another friendly model is also within 1 inch of the enemy attacker. On a fumble, you drop your weapon. If the target of the attack survives and has not activated, it is still eligible for activation that round. Nice. And then ranged attacks have a max range of 12 inches. To perform a ranged attack, your model must be able to see the target. And models in close combat cannot use ranged attacks. And if a model is in the way, you apply a -3 hit to the roll. There's some brutal, shit dies.
Yeah. Shit fucking dies.
Yeah. You roll a DR12 test, add the modifiers, see if you hit, mark off 1 ammo, add your damage. That's it. Super straightforward. And he was talking about throwing stuff before. So here it is. You can throw any weapon up to 6 inches, but you suffer a -3 to the roll, and it is placed on the ground next to your target, regardless of if you hit or miss. So basically, if you miss, you just threw your weapon to the other guy. There you go. Ranged weapons count as one-handed makeshift weapons in combat. Next is damage, but we are going to take a quick break here before we come back and get into that aspect. So we will BRB, everybody. Oh, and we are back with Forbidden Psalm in the combat section, going on to damage. Do you want to take damage?
Sure. Damage. When you successfully hit with a weapon, you roll the weapon's damage dice. Deduct the model's armor value from the result. Armor always reduces damage unless otherwise stated, like with a cruel weapon, which always does damage, at least 1. Reduce the wounded model's HP by the damage amount remaining. Very, very simple, straightforward. There's an example here. One more, again, Ryan's character's here again. Criticals always cause max damage. Armor is still applied. For lead in combat, models within 1 inch are in combat. If a model wishes to lead combat, your opponent can decide to stop. To stop you. Monsters always try to stop you. The opponent rolls agility against DR12. On a pass, your model does not move. On a failure, your model moves up to their movement value and takes no further action. If they fumble, you can move and take an action. You can move and take an action. Oh, okay, cool. On a critical, they make an attack against you. Models can freely move off the board edge to leave the scenario. Cool. Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry, I just got a message from one of my employees about nothing important. I was like, wait, oh God, is it an emergency? And no, it's not. It's Saturday. Why are you messaging me? Or whatever day you're listening to the song. Morale. When a model, I love it how they have morale in here because first off, it's in Mörk Borg and it's a great rule of Mörk Borg. And also just it makes fucking sense. No one fights to the death. When a model rolls for morale, take a presence test. On a failure, they flee the fight, immediately moving their max movement towards the nearest board edge. On the next activation, they retake the test. So if their movement gets them off the board, they're out. But if it doesn't, they get to retake the test. On a pass, they act as normal. On a failure, they continue to move off the board, essentially. They retake the test every single round that they still remain on the board. Models must take a morale test when they are critically hit. They strike a downed enemy. So makes a lot of sense. They're terrified and running away.
That one line above the models must make a morale test. You skipped that one. Oh,
fleeing combat due to morale does not trigger an enemy attack.
Interesting.
Okay, so they're just like, they're not going to come at you because you're running away in fear.
There you go. I really like this rule a lot where like you have the opportunity to continue to like keep retrying to like break it unless you're like right at the edge is really, really neat.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense too. Everything here makes a lot of sense. Very straightforward. Like there's logic to all of this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to, this is the kind of continuation of damage. No title at the top of the page, but when a model's HP is equal or less than 0, it is considered downed. Lay it face up. If a downed model takes any more damage, it is immediately killed. Lay them face down. That fucking sucks. I guess it's essentially like a coup de grace, you know? Downed models must pass a death save at the end of the scenario to determine if they die during the session or if they manage to crawl their way off the field bloodied and broken. The save is a toughness check against a DR6. On a fail, they are dead. And on a pass, they are wounded, rolling on the injury table on page 68. On a critical success, they learn something new. Roll on the injury table and assign them a new feat. It doesn't say roll on the feat table. It says assign them a new feat, which I think is interesting. But yeah, so
I guess if you roll, and I think this page is all like the death, and they just put the title at the bottom instead of the top.
Right? Yeah. With this cool what is going on in this piece of art? It's very cool. It's like a sarcophagus hung from a chain, you know,
from a noose. Yeah,
noose. Yeah,
I like it a lot, but it's like a coffin.
Coffin. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah. Thank you.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the rules are pretty standard Mörk Borg because it is obviously compatible with Mörk Borg, so it's pretty. But I do like one of the things that he said. Kevin said when we were interviewing him about like if they die, they die. You just get more for free. Like that's the whole point of it. And like this is like if you're downed and like but don't take any more damage, the option to just like drag yourself away and succeed on a death save because the DR6 is not too hard. Because it's a toughness check too. So if you have a +3 in toughness, you literally just need to roll a 3 on a d20. So it seems like the game itself can be super brutal, but if you happen to go down, it's not really that hard to keep your model, which if I kit bashed and worked my dick off for my warband, I'd like to, keep it in play. And, so that's cool. I like that a lot.
Spellcasting. You want to take over for spellcasting?
Sure. When you cast a spell, roll a presence DR12 test, just like in Mörk Borg. On a success, the spell is cast. On a fail, or crit, mark a tragedy. Spellcasting does not consume the scrolls, and you can cast the same spell multiple times a scenario. Tragedies carry between games and are spent when you roll on the calamity table. So we'll see that. On a fumble, you immediately roll a calamity, adding any incurred tragedies to your dice result to a maximum of 20. Calamity effects last the scenario unless otherwise stated. You cannot cast spells while in close combat. And this is the calamity table. I will roll a d20. Do you want to roll a calamity as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Go for it. What'd you get?
I got a 6. Caster's hands begin to glow with hellfire. Caster takes d4 damage and drops any held weapon. Damage ignores armor. That sets your hands light on fire.
Usually not good. I got a 12. The caster vanishes as they fall into Refa. They return at the end of the next round, taking d4 damage. Interesting.
Cool.
I like number 1 and number 4. I think those are my two favorites. Number 1 is blood spills from the caster's eyes, so the caster is blinded. Do you want to read number 4?
Yeah, number 4. A death bell rings. If the caster is downed in this scenario, they're considered dead and do not get a death save. Fuck, that's rough. God, yeah. Bleeding from the eyes. It's so fucking Mörk Borg, honestly.
Yeah, I love this. It's so good. Another piece of beautiful public domain art here with the same kind of like woodcut style. And at the bottom it says, most gods throw dice, but fate plays chess. And you don't find out till too late that he's been playing with 2 queens all along. Nice. Getting into omens. Omens is obviously part of Mörk Borg. At the start of a scenario, players gain the following 6 omens each, which is really interesting. Yeah. They can spend these once and only once per scenario at any time, including after a roll for the following effects. That's not how Mörk Borg works, but I really, really like this part. You basically get these like abilities kind of to play. Devastation is you deal maximum damage with an attack. Fate is you re-roll any dice, yours or someone else's. Grace, you remove a downed model from play. It auto passes its death save. Banality, cancel 1 critical or fumble. Greed, re-roll on the yeah, that one's dope. I like the banality.
Yeah, that one can really fucking save you.
Yeah, right. Well, even the fate one could be basically like that, or it could be just like that one hit that gets you. Agreed, you reroll on the treasure table, and confidence automatically pass 1 test, i.e. jumping, morale, or combat. I noticed the lack of Oxford commas. Another little note. I really enjoy these omens, and I can only assume that, yeah, it's the player. So across your 5-person warband, you have these 6 things. It's not like each member of the warband gets a 6. That's my assumption. Yeah. Because that would be insane if sense. You got like 6 times 5 is 30. If you got 30 abilities to do.
It'd also be hard to track each individual, like, you know.
That'd be pain in the dick. Yeah, that'd be awful. Are these on the character sheets? I'm looking in the book, but we'll get to them at the end. No, they are not on the individual like warband like character sheets. That would be an interesting, like a good thing to add. And when we get to the page spread, we'll look at it. But if you always have these, I think that would actually be really nice to have available with maybe even like a checkbox.
I would put this up on my table somewhere so that I remembered, you know?
Yeah, like the bordered edge or something like that. I know that recently in the, I think it was a Mörk Borg Discord, Philip Reed, who obviously we love a lot of their Mörk Borg stuff, created a kind of like grid combat thing that was like yellow with like these pink borders that looked really cool, and dropped it in there. And
I did not see that.
Yeah, and had rules like written around the edges for like combat rules and stuff like that. It was neat. I feel like that would be really, and I think it was 24 by 24. I think that would be really cool for this to use as like a base that you could download. Monsters. So monsters, after all models have been activated by all players, monsters are I completely forgot that there's monsters in scenarios too. So if you're playing against somebody and there's monsters too, that's a lot out there. But monsters are activated after all players. Let me read this because my brain. After all models have been activated by all players, monsters are then activated. If there's more than one monster to activate, randomize them with a dice roll. So basically, we roll initiative, and then I get to do my turns, you get to do your turns, and then there's a monster turn, and then it goes through the 3 again. Okay. So there are 6 steps to monster behavior and that you follow. So number 1, check the monster special rules. Number 2, check to see if the monster model can see any other model that is not the same type as it. Monsters can attack other monsters.
Oh.
So if one of these is not like the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Number 3, if it cannot, most monsters, unless specified, remain still and do not activate. If it cannot, most monsters, unless specified, remain still and do not activate. Am I missing? If it cannot what?
Can't see any other, see any model of another type.
Oh, gotcha. So it's just a continuation too. Okay.
Yes.
Again, right. Number 4, if a monster can see another model that is not the same as itself, it moves 2d6 towards the model. If a monster can see more than a single model, it always goes towards the closer model. On a tie, roll a dice to determine which way it moves. If the monster makes it within 1 inch of a model not of the same type as it immediately attacks as per the close combat rules. Randomize if there are more than one model within 1 inch. It's interesting that they switched to a 2d6 here for movement. We haven't seen that anywhere prior in the game, right?
Right.
Everything has like set amount of movement in d20s. Yeah. Interesting. So as we know, 2d6 bell curve is 6 to 8. Because Powered by the Apocalypse does 7 to 9 because they assume you have at least a +1 in everything that you're doing. So odds are you're moving 6 to 8 inches across the board, which is roughly character movement. I think close. The movement is 5+ something for the movement. So
yeah, it's a 5+ agility. Cool. So it's more than some because some are going to have a fucking negative in their agility, you know?
Yeah. But you could go anywhere between 2 and 12 on the inches. So bad news if it's moving 12 inches towards you.
God, no kidding.
Right?
That thing can run fast.
Right. Monsters make all checks at DR12 with no modifiers unless specified. This includes if they are attacked or targeted by any spells. This is also for all abilities unless otherwise specified. Monsters do not prioritize downed models unless otherwise stated. Oh, interesting. So all checks are DR12, no modifiers. And they don't attack down models unless stated. So baseline with no specials, which I'm sure there's plenty of monsters that will target down opponents and have modifiers. Right. But baseline, it's just a DR12 roll and it'll attack something standing. That's cool. I like that. Because again, there is no real GM, I guess, to the monsters. If you're playing co-op, It just does the base rules. So you need to know it's kind of motivation a little bit if it's going to kill the down thing or not. And once again, another example of play. Love it. Nephel getting attacked by a feasting Wendigo. Rolls 2d6, rolls a 5, which is enough to reach him. When it reaches him, it immediately attacks Nephel, and Nephel attacks back at the same time with a -3. And then Jotna the Unholy on his turn decides to join the fray, charges into combat attacking the Wendigo. However, unlike player-controlled models, the Wendigo does not get a -3 to attack back, as monsters always roll against the target DR12. Interesting. I'm super glad that was clarified there, because I don't think it's clarified in other space. Interesting. And then monster morale. If a monster is ever hit by a critical hit, it takes a morale roll. Roll 2d6. If you roll above its morale, it flees the field, moving 2d6 around until it leaves the field or is killed. If monster morale is just a dash, they ignore morale rules. I'm curious why the switch to the 2d6, and if it's just because they wanted that bell curve of kind of relatively consistent movements with some, with a little bit of swing to it, as opposed to a d20, which is a massive amount of swing.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Yeah, because I mean, everything else has been set so far. And it might illuminate when we get to monster stats, because I don't think monsters have agility. I think they just have like super stripped down stats. So I think that's probably why.
So do you want to go over the monster engine?
You could roll a 12, you know?
Every time, realistically.
I think you got it for a little bit longer, you know?
Okay. So this page here, we're looking at page, I believe it is 30. It's a breakdown of the Feasting Wendigo monster stat block, and it's very nicely labeled with lines going to stuff and everything. And as Hunter said, they don't have stats as in as agility, presence, and all the stuff as people do. So you get HP, which is obviously their HP. You get morale, which is when a monster takes a critical hit, roller above this on a D6. Yeah, they flee the battlefield. You get damage, which is what kind of damage it is, as in this one has claws, and then you get what the damage die is. So claws are D6. The monster type, it clearly is labeled at the top. It's the part with the name for the monster. And then you get an armor value, which, as we know, is just always a reduction. And then you get the monster special and attack abilities. So just to go over the Wendigo here, because it does have a special attack, whenever the Feasting Wendigo downs someone, it immediately begins to feast on them for 2 rounds. If it finishes its feast, they rise 1 round later as another Feasting Wendigo. Will always perform... And that with HP 22. Will always perform feast action if possible, even if other models are within 1 inch. Nice. So basically,
brutal.
If the model's downed, the next time this thing hits it, it's dead no matter what, because we know any damage on a down model kills it. And then if it gets to do that for 2 rounds, it gets to bring up another Feasting Wendigo, which is just, that's rough.
That's fucking rough.
So rough. I wonder, as we get into the monsters, if it's going to be more a lot of like a lot of boss monsters like Red Giant, or it's going to be like more horde monsters, or kind of a mix. So when you read through these, were there any that really stuck out as you that you wanted to go over the monsters? Because we got pages of monsters.
The Corpse Collector.
Okay.
We have to go over the Corpse Collector.
Oh, of course. Well, it's Johan Nor art, and it's a cover of the book, so we'll look at that. I did want to go over the Mörk Borg, though.
Okay.
Just because it's Mörk Borg. All right. HP 10, morale 5, gore D8, armor 1. Its special is that it is a large wild hog that can be tamed. To tame one, you must feed it your flesh. And pass a presence test DR12 when within 1 inch of it. On a success, you gain the lost limb injury, but now have a Mörk Borg as a mount. Your movement is increased by 3 inches, and you gain a gore attack. On a fail, it attacks you. I love that, and I will say...
That's a really good one, actually.
Yeah. I will say it is impossible, and Andy can confirm this, to play this with another person and not giggle and make at least one dick joke. I feel like that just happens. Am I wrong?
I mean, I would make the joke, so.
Cool. Corpse Collector.
There's a lot of really good ones. Also,
the Great
really
Law,
like this,
too?
Yeah. I was looking at the blood rage vampire. It's very simple, but I like that it just heals when it attacks you. And it's like, oh, that fucking sucks. You know?
Yeah. A lot of these is just like,
though.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Yeah. So Corpse Collector. HP 20, morale dash. That means you don't get one. It slams for D6 and armor 3. So stats wise does not seem the hardest thing in here. The Feasting Wendigo, actually, I think across the board for the most part has, I would say, quote unquote, like better or equivalent stats.
Yeah.
But the special, when the Corpse Collector hits a target, it must make a DR12 strength check. On a failure, the collector picks the target up and places them onto a spike on its back, doing 2 damage. If they are still alive, they can make a strength check to remove themselves from his back each round, taking 1 damage each round. They fail. If they drop to 0 HP, they die and are added to the collection.
God.
Just picking people up and just like stabbing it to its back. That's so dope.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one, you know? It's also just like, yeah, he's got corpses stuck to the spikes on his back. You know, like
I love that.
Collecting.
One of my favorite minis, because as I said, I have hundreds and hundreds of the like 3.5 and minis and stuff like that. The Corpse Collector mini is one of my favorite ones because it actually does, like, it's got these giant spikes on its back and actually has people and like on its back and skulls on its belt and stuff like that. And I love that. Such a good mini. As we said before, there are creatures here written by Kevin's children. The Animal Cultist we talked about is by Cora. And one of the things that they said is if more than 2 animal cultists are within 3 inches of each other, they begin to perform a cult ritual, summoning another monster at the end of the monster phase if they remain within 3 inches. The creature they summon depends on the number of animal cultists. If you have, so at 2, it's another animal cultist. At 3, it's the good old Mörk Borg. 10 creatures, the basilisk, and the world ends.
Oh, no way.
That's what he said in the thing that someone messaged him and was like, hey, so our world ended.
Yeah.
Right?
What did we do? Nothing. The world fucking ended. Oh my God. I do remember him saying that now, but I kind of forgot for a second about that.
Yeah.
That's fucking brutal.
I know that the Great Maw, if I remember correctly, is in like the final scenario. It's a huge piece of that. So it is really cool. The Great Maw's special is that when it attacks, it attempts to swallow the target. The target makes a DR12 agility or strength test. On a failure, they are swallowed into the maw. The next time the target activates, it must make a DR12 presence check. On a failure, it is taken into a pocket dimension and lost forever. Yeah, love it.
Jeez, brutal.
Yeah. And then the last one I really want to go over, unless you have another one, is the sock stealing goblin. I don't know if you noticed while reading this that socks are a big part of it. There was a part earlier with Vripix where he's like talking about someone stealing his socks and he's really pissed off about it because he believes that magic accrues in wizards' feet, so it's like sticks in their socks. So he thinks that someone's stealing his magic by stealing their socks.
That's so
funny. There's a sock stealing goblin. HP 4, morale 2, claws 2, armor doesn't have any. The special is if a sock goblin ever succeeds on an attack, the target of the attack makes a presence check. On a fail, they immediately gain broken bone injury. And the sock goblin only steals old socks. No, odd socks. Will move on to a new target after a successful attack. Immediately move them after they attack successfully. I just love, and there's another part a little bit later, I think in one of the scenarios, where it talks about his socks getting stolen again and he's all like butthurt about it. So I like there's just a random kind of like subplot within it for that.
Sock stealing goblin.
Love it. There are all of the monsters in this in the first book here are collected onto a D20 random encounter table. So it's also a good guide to just all of the monsters in one page, which is really nice. I like to see that. Yeah. And it also gives this how many to spawn on co-op versus solo play versus play, which is really nice to see as a good breakdown of how much in combat. Because one of my questions immediately was just like, how many, is it completely like OSR style and it doesn't matter if you die, or is there at least a little bit of a reference? And there is, and there is a harvesting section. Even at the end of it all, there are those that will pay
meats.
Sweet. Well, and because in Mörk Borg, I don't think a lot of people really focus on that aspect of it, but they say straight up this could be a Monster Hunter game because all of the monsters have values for what they're worth and stuff. So when a monster is killed, a model can take an action to harvest from the monster. They make a presence check. If they, on a success, they get an organ, they can sell for 5 gold. Harvested organs take up equipment slots. And that's about it. Oh, I like this. On a failure, they're disgusted by their actions and must make a morale save. That's great. And that is the core rules of the game, the monsters, everything like that. Do you want to, we got plenty of time. It's only 10:30. Do you want to flip through one of the scenarios real quick? Or, there's a treasure section.
Ooh.
Okay. Yeah. Let's go through just the beginning part here. It does talk about setting up the table. Do you want to take that or do you want me to keep going?
I'll do setting up table. You can take over for treasure, but the game can be played on a table of any size, but is recommended that for tables of 2 feet by 2 feet. Terrain should be used to reduce line of sight. Players each place a single piece of terrain on the table. After placing terrain, players roll d6, adding the number of currently placed terrain pieces. If the result is 9 or more, stop. If not, add another piece of terrain to the table. For example, if you have 6 pieces of terrain and then roll 3 on a die, this would add to 9. You'd stop placing terrain. That's cool. I like that everyone's going to place terrain down collectively. That's really cool.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I love this picture in the bottom of the Corpse Collector mini.
Yeah. Jotuna, who they talk about, and a bunch of the examples facing the Corpse Collector. Very cool. Yeah, the Corpse Collector is a fucking terrifying concept in general.
Yeah, and it's got this this I guess like box or something covered in spikes attached to its back, and then it does have that like half the body in its right hand, which I think was the inspiration for the cover art with Johan that's behind you, and then just a bunch of like skeletal bodies stabbed onto its back. It's super cool. Love that.
Don't get collected, you know. Scenarios are designed to be played over a max of 6 rounds, unless the scenario states otherwise. At the end of the 6 rounds, your warband gets bored, will be dead, or flee in terror. Any items left on the table at the end of round 6 are considered lost if they are on the model that died or dies as a result of a death save. Some scenarios will have custom round lengths. If you are playing on a larger board, you may want to increase the amount of turns you are playing for. Reading scenarios. This is like the list of the scenarios. The Ramblings of the Mad Wizard. This is just reading scenarios. I'm slow today, y'all. I'm having a dumb guy day, and I blame all of the cats. Ramblings of the Mad Wizard, what Vriprix has told you, goal, what you're here to do, reward, what the Mad Wizard's offering, setup and treasure, how to set up table, deployment, how you deploy, threats, what monsters are present, solo play, how to play the scenario solo if you do, co-op, how to play co-op, and end game. What's the end game result? So it's just how these are how you read the scenarios. It's very straightforward. I like that it's 6 rounds. It's very controllable. You know, it's very like almost short, but not in a bad way, you know? Yeah.
Well, I mean, realistically, if you sit down, I think there's, I was going to say 10. I don't know if there's 10 scenarios in the book. I think it's 10 scenarios in the book, with the end being the end of if you run it as a campaign. If it only takes like 30-ish minutes for each one, I was going to say 3 hours, but that's not how hours work because it's 60 minutes, not 100. But you could run through the whole thing in like an hour-ish. And I do like that there are marked sections with RPG symbol only used for when you're playing it as an RPG, not for the minis game. So the scenarios can easily be converted into adventures, which is super freaking dope. Yeah. And then we hit the treasure section. Scenarios will indicate how and when to roll for treasure. When a model makes a treasure roll, they can search by rolling DR10 presence test. I love this. On a failure, they cut their hand on a rust nail and take 1 damage, and it ignores armor. Which it's just kind of like a little fuck you, and I love it. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, it's kind of just a little fuck you, which is perfect.
But imagine if everyone fails and it's literally just a bunch of fuckheads just being like, ow, 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 like across the entire thing. On a pass, they roll below the model. Then, if they have equipment slots free, picks up that item. If they do not have slots free, it's placed on the ground and can be picked up by another model. Coins do not take up equipment slots. I love this. Do you want to roll a d20?
Yes, I do.
Oh, I rolled a 20.
I rolled a 19.
Yep. So you get 1 sentence from the Forbidden Psalm. When you have all 5, you can sell them to Vriprix, the Mad Wizard, and retire with 1,000 gold.
Ooh.
Sick. So I rolled a 20, and a 20 is you get to roll twice. And I rolled an 18 and a 16, so I get 1 random relic and 10 gold.
It's so funny if you rolled 1 twice after that.
That would be, and you just get 2 total gold. Yeah.
Yeah, just got 2
or
gold.
3. Yeah. 3 is literally just a pile of bones. And much like I said before, you can pick up femurs anywhere. Pile of bones says can be used as a makeshift one-handed weapon. So basically, it picked up a femur. Love this. Again, just like everything else, it's really clean. It's really straightforward. Makes sense. I like it. Really cool piece of art. Another quote at the bottom. No great mind has ever existed without a touch of madness. And then there is the setting. The setting for basically this campaign, which is these 10 adventures. So the innkeeper had told you all to take the southern path, past the decaying trees, along the cold barren road you walked until up ahead beyond the trees to a twisted castle. The innkeeper had told you of the wizard who lived here, a recluse who refused to show his face but offered good coin for tasks completed. I like the RPG section. You can have the players attacked by a Mörk Borg or a skeleton of Kyrgyz, which would make a good fight here. Basically, you approach the castle, you knock on the door, and this single beady eye looks out and says, "I am Vribrix, the Mad Wizard. If you are here for work, we can talk. Otherwise, be gone, pests." And he gives a really good RP breakdown of Vribrix. He's a paranoid madman who never shows his face, only communicates through the doors. Yeah, right?
Same.
Players who try to get in through the castle find is protected. And just through some slots in the door, he exchanges gold with you for found items. He's obsessed with the 8th Psalm. As we know, there's only 7 and 7 of the Nameless Scriptures, believing it to be in the ruins of the settlements that dot the land of Kyrgyz. He's paranoid that someone is stealing his socks and believes deeply that the magic of wizards accumulate in their socks. Love it.
God damn it.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. No one really knows who he is or what he's doing, but he's there. And there are optional rules here on a D8 roll table for weather, which is really, really cool. I like that. Cool. It's just simple, clean, 1-page, easy little variation that I really, really enjoy.
Yeah.
And then it talks about darkness and partial darkness.
Oh, yeah.
The last thing. Yeah. Models without a torch, lantern, or other source of light and not within 6 inches of another model with a source of light take -6 to all rolls, but they cannot be targeted by enemy ranged attacks or scrolls.
Oh.
So if it is dark out and you got a torch, you could and you're doing bad, you could always just put out your torch and move away. And then partial darkness as above, but only suffer a -3 to rolls and range of light sources extend to 9 inches. What I really like about this page here is it kind of feels like a playtest. Oh yeah. Like kind of the same way we did with 12 years, where it's just like, I feel like they playtested this a bunch and someone asked a question and they're like, that's a perfectly valid question. Let me address it. So I like that. And then, do you want to go over the scenarios, or, hey, if you want the scenarios, just read the book?
I think can we just look at number 2? We don't have to go through it, but
absolutely.
For people who play mostly tabletop games and maybe not any war games, it's interesting to look at just the map for number 2. So you don't have to read through the whole scenario, but just how the deployment zones are set up for this map, because it's the first one that shows monster deployment.
Okay. Well, then let's read through it a little bit then, just so we get some reference for it. Okay. So this one's called My Heart Has Joined the Thousand. Vribrix tells you he has been watching them from his tower, the little critters of the world, and they're plotting some great evil, probably to steal socks. He has seen it in their strange dances. They gather at midnight. Go find out what they're doing and put an end to this madness. I love this scenario because it's just fucking weird. Because this weird madman's just like the little fucking things out there. Yeah. You have to kill them all because their dances prevent the animal cult from calling forth the end of the world, which they can, because if 10 of them get together, they call forth the basilisk. So he's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong. If we actually look at the deployment, players take in turns and deploy animal cultists at least 3 inches from the player's deployment area and at least 4 inches from another animal cultist. Place 10 animal cultists in this manner. Each player chooses 2 animal cultists who are carrying treasure. When these animal cultists are killed, they drop their treasure and it can be searched following the treasure rules. So you start with 10 on the board.
Yeah.
Which is bad news. And then you're talking about the deployment zones. What did you like about this?
It's just interesting to see, like, there are set out, like, there's the player deployments and there are like the monster to spawn areas, essentially, you know? And then right in the center, you have the ritual. It's just like, you know, it's not a thing that we look at a lot when you're playing. Like when you play D&D, you didn't think about like, oh, where am I deploying everything? Because it's just not how it works. I don't know. I just liked it. It's a good reference for how this works, you know?
Yeah, no, that's great. I really like the slot because, and it also is the terrain part that you get to add in too, which I think I missed when I read through it the first time, but I love that because I know that our friend Andy is a huge terrain guy and obviously a big wargamer guy, and I'm curious if that's, I mean, obviously linked, but as someone who's never, I don't think you have either, right? You've never really played a skirmish game?
No.
I want to play this really bad.
I do really want to play this, yeah.
There was a suggestion that we could upload this into Tabletop Simulator and play like a 3D Have you ever played Tabletop Simulator?
I have not, but I know what it is.
Yeah. So you could easily do this with that and with the generated minis in there, or throw in your own minis. But yeah, you're completely right. This is a great kind of breakdown of how it works. And it makes it so easy, especially if you've never done... Like, I don't feel intimidated by this game at all, even having not played a war game.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. It's very understandable, you know?
So cruising through the scenarios. Again, if you want to read all the scenarios, buy the book. Go to Exalted Funeral. Yeah. Buy the book. It's worth it. Super worth it. I think we get to a point where we're past the scenarios and... Oh, there's a campaign section where they do things a little differently, so we can quickly breeze through that. Do you want to go through the campaign section?
Yeah, let me scroll up. I was looking at relics, actually. It's just one page apart. Campaign. After each encounter, follow these steps. Each warband with at least one standing member gets paid 10 gold for taking part. Roll death saves. D6 toughness save. On fail, die. Roll injury. Here we go. And injuries are permanent effects that stack and change your model stats or abilities. You can roll. You want to roll an injury real quick?
Yeah. Also, what is it? A D8? Yeah. That lost limb you get from the Mörk Borg is explained here. Can only use one-handed weapons and have one less equipment slot. Love that. D8. I rolled a 1.
Broken bones -1 agility. Nice. It's funny that they stack, so it's like the longer your mini makes it through, your character makes it through, like they're gonna get fucked eventually.
You just one-eyed, like broken leg, missing one hand, like your flesh falling off,
just dragging yourself into battle.
Dragging into battle. I just want my 10 gold. Like, I love that.
Yeah, and then moving on, we've got once again a fun piece of art that's like it's a miniature, you know, it's like I don't know, this box person, like what, like
the dude in the box armor,
dude in the box
guy,
box guy, box buddy. Step number 4, you can sell items to the Mad Wizard. He pays half the cost of weapons and armor listed on pages 14-15, rounded down. Scrolls cannot be sold. 5, gaining and spending XP. Warband gain 1 XP per monster killed, treasure collected. Scenarios that you survive essentially with at least one person. Models downed. Past death saves, which I think is cool. And warband members who die. So I guess your buddies die and gives you experience as well. The warband can spend 5 XP to do one of the following. Improve the warband members' ability by 1. Remove a warband member injury. Oh, okay, there is a way to remove injury. Just cost you XP. Reroll a warband member's flaw. Gain a new feat. Bring a single warband member back from the dead. They return with a new flaw, though. Very cool. You want to take over for hiring?
Yeah, hiring new members of the party is number 6. At the end of the world, there are plenty of lost souls looking for work. If your warband has less than 5 people in it, you can recruit a new member for free. Creating them as you did the original members. New members come from no equipment, so either pillage your dead or buy them some new threads. If all 5 of your warband are dead, start from scratch. Once per scenario, you can fire a warband member and replace them, but they take their equipment with them. I like that, and I like how he talked about this while we were interviewing, and basically just said, like, why make it hard? Like, people want to play the game, so if they lose people, just hire some new schmuck. You know, like, pillage the dead and keep going. I really like that. And the final step is number 7, reallocate equipment, including placing it in your party stash and buy new equipment, because they can only carry so many items. So I guess if you want to upgrade and keep your shit in case you need to hire new people. So there are D10 relics. Do you want to roll a relic? And I'll roll one.
I rolled a 5.
Nice.
Clawed gauntlets, where cannot be disarmed.
Ooh, that's a nice one. I rolled an 8, Ring of the Mighty, +2 strength, but can never wear armor. Ooh. Kind of an interesting glass candy situation. Yeah. If you started with a +3, you could have a +5 strength, no armor. Ooh, I like this guy too. Quick go through the rules on the merchant. He's another guy you can sell to, but Vriprix does not like him. A shadowy figure who approaches you on your way back to Vriprix. The merchant buys items for 1 gold more than Vriprix. Free items cannot be sold. He is available to sell 3 random weapons, 1 random armor, 1 random piece of equipment, and 1 random relic generated each time you visit. He sells items for 1 gold less than listed price. The 1 relic is sold for 100 gold. However, Vriprix does not like the merchant, and when buying or selling, roll a d20. On a 1, you get caught by Vriprix, and one of your models gains a lost limb injury. Roll once per visit, but if you were caught a second time, Vriprix refuses to deal with you until a member of your warband is sent away. Replace that member with a new one, and the merchant stops dealing with you.
He's just gonna chop off your arm if he sees you selling to the merchant, you know?
Yeah, he doesn't like him. Doesn't like him. There is a guide here to creating your own scenario, which is really nice. It's a good breakdown. We're not going to, we don't need to read through this, but it's just a really good guide on creating your own scenario. Exactly what the title says.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there is a bonus scenario, which is really cool. And then the character pages. You get a whole warband again. So when you look at it, each individual, it's a whole warband. You can write your warband names, and then there's individual sections for each member of your warband: names, stats, flaws, injuries, feats, weapons, equipment. I think, as we talked about, on the second page of the spread at the bottom, there's a section for your scrolls, your tragedies, and the party equipment stash. But it would be really nice to see the 6 omens that your party gets per scenario. Yeah, it'd be really nice to see that. Last couple pages that are really, really cool are shots of people's warbands and miniatures that they've kitbacked or painted. That's so cool. I really like this community aspect that he did, where he's like bringing in I assume like fan stuff and like things that people sent him. They're all the ats or names are all credited on the warbands. Some of them are really, really gruesome. The bottom of this, the unsupervised darkness, whatever this is on the bottom right here, with what looks to be like a human-sized tumor coming out of it. So dope. And then there is pages of the standees, which I really like. I guess my question with the standees is, would you be sticking them into standee bases? Would you assume you'd have like pawn bases?
Probably.
Okay, because I've seen standees, I really like these, but I've seen standees where it like folds like that, but has tabs on both sides, so it makes its own little base. I think that would be cool, but also it could be other pawn bases. But it's all the monsters in the game, including Corpse Collector, Grand Maw, or the Great Maw. The anatomy of a miniature, where it talks about the first miniature that was made that inspired this entire thing and how they were crafted. Completely kit bashed, 3D printed candle, a skull from 40k Chaos Rhino, Hood from Green Stuff Sculpted, a knife from 40k miniature, scroll from Plague Monks, a body from an Anvil miniature, and just this encouragement to kit bash and a whole section of YouTube channels to go check out to learn more about kit bashing.
Very cool.
Yeah, and miniature and a list of miniature makers of to get from your kit bashing, and then random tables for weird and wonderful warband members. Basically, I assume this is like kit bashing like tables. You can roll for head, weapon, eyes, light source, face, what they're wearing, and make them unique. And you could just roll up an entire thing to kit bash. So you can literally even make your miniatures based on all the roll tables in here, which is super dope. And that's it. And the 8th Psalm is actually listed in the back, but guess what? If you want to know what the 8th Psalm is, buy the book. So won't hang on that too long. This is great, and that's the end. Great piece of art on the back, Exalted Funeral, which of course we got some mad love for Exalted Funeral, and KRD Designs, Kevin Rahman Daughtry. That is Forbidden Psalms. A little bit different than what we normally do because it is a miniatures game, but clearly, again, written to be compatible with Mörk Borg as an RPG, with some tweaks to the rules that would be really, really interesting. Heading to the review.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm scrolling through again, looking at all the art and saying my art score right now.
Yeah. I really like, well, first of all, the cover. Oh, so again, real quick, and I'll do this every time, just in case it's the first time you're listening. When we do our game review scores here, we break it down across 5 different topics worth 10 points each. Art and style, as in, is the art good? Is there enough of it? Is the style consistent? Basically, layout and function is not artistically how it lays out and looks. It's more of, are the pages very readable? Is it hyperlinked and bookmarked? How functional is the book itself? Rule set and crunch is, if it's a new rule set, is it unique? Is it good? Is it interesting? Crunch is, are those rules the appropriate amount of rules, or is it like so overly crunchy for what you're trying to do that it gets in the way of the game? Originality is a very broad, subjective thing for lore, game style, rule set, everything like that. And value is basically bang for your buck. What do you get? Is it roughly average cost? And are there any extras you get with it as well? Are there bonuses, expansions, third-party content, third-party licenses, things like that? So art and style, what are your thoughts?
There's a lot of art, There's a ton of art. It's not quite Mörk Borg, but it's really darn close, I mean, for me, I think it's more than an 8, and I think it's less than a 10. You know what I mean? So.
Okay. I really like the art, and there is a ton of art. There's a lot of like the dead people art. I think what we gave a 9 to was like Orbital Blues, which I think maybe used a little bit more, like less. I have no problem with using like the dead people art, but I think it's more original art, I think. But I feel like the style is super consistent. And like you said, you can tell this is Mörk Borg inspired, but not Mörk Borg copied, which is a reason we love stuff from like Chris Eichhorn and things like that, because they keep the style but make it their own. I mean, I don't quite think it's Orbital Blues level of like
fair. When you put it like that, that is fair. So
yeah. Do you want to go? I'm happy with an 8 on this.
I'm happy with an 8 on this.
I'm super good with an 8. Yeah. I think it looks, again, one of the things that's really important to us is that it all the art pieces give you the vibe like repeatedly. So let's do that 8. Layout and function. All right. No bookmarks, no hyperlinks. That's obviously a big thing for me.
Very readable.
Functionality. Yeah. The pages themselves are very, very, very readable. Even when it's a bunch of different fonts, there's not too much on the page. I never felt like I was overwhelmed by.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of pages like the stats page where it's just that and that's it. They don't try to claim it on there. So I think, I mean, as far as trying to think of another game where it's like the layout's good, it's clean, everything like that, but it's not hyperlinked, it's not anything else. So I would say it's above average, I think, as far as the readability, without a lot of the functionality. What are your thoughts?
I'm going with a 7 on this one.
7 was where I was falling too. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. It's organized well. It's easy to read, but it's missing a few quality of life things. And there's also not a really good reference page at the beginning or end like we would see in Mörk Borg, actually.
You mean like a table of contents, or
no, like a rules table?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Like a 1-page rules spread. I don't disagree with that. Yeah, I don't think we missed that. But yeah, I think just like a 1 or 2-page rule spread. Yeah. It might. I think this has maybe just a little bit more rules, because it might be like a combat mini section and then like the terrain building section. But I think like a quick play section, kind of how Max Moon does in the back of 12 Years, would be really nice too. So I completely agree with that. 7's good. Rule set and crunch. I mean, it's Mörk Borg with some twists to make it a minis game. But I think those twists are necessary and really well done. And I think we talked a bunch about the crunch being like it's light. It's really light.
It really is very light. Yeah, I agree. I really liked this, and I think it was had appropriate rules that were very easy to understand. So
completely agree. I think the closest we really have as a reference for this would be like 12 Years. As far as a game that's kind of like a game within a game. What are your thoughts on?
I don't know. What do we give 12 Year?
That's what I was just trying to get right now. A 9. Here's my thought. It is a great variation of Mörk Borg, and one of the things that we critique is if you'd use a rule set, how do you make it unique and different? I think they do a really good job of making it unique and different.
I agree.
But 12 Years
is
probably, I think it's the highest score we've given a rule set because of its insane uniqueness. Still very similar in like solo versus co-op and things like that.
Yeah.
I do enjoy this, and I love Mörk Borg. I don't think for a solo, potentially co-op game that it's quite 12 Years, in my opinion.
What are you thinking?
I'm somewhere between let's see, because we gave Kingdoms a 9 too. We gave him a bunch of games 8, like Red Giant and Mothership. We think it's on that level. Art got a 7. Into the Odd got a 9. Lancer got a 7. Mörk Borg got an 8.
It's better.
I don't think it can get better than Mörk Borg. Yeah. So to me, it's between a 7 and 8, and that's what was in my head.
Okay. I'm somewhere between that as well.
So again, the 8s are like Red Giant, Mothership, Orbital Blues. Do we think it's as good as those games? And again, I don't want to say that using a variation of a rule set kind of not doesn't give you a loss of points, but I think if something's about the same, an original rule set kind of wins out.
Probably 7 then.
Yeah, I'm thinking 7. Yeah. I'm thinking 7 for that too. Again, it's really good, but just subjectively or objectively stacked up to other games. Originality. Again, it's Mörk Borg, but taken in a really interesting direction.
Yeah, definitely. I actually think it's really original to take what was the point of these tactical skirmish games and bring it back around, tie it into Mörk Borg. I think it's fairly original. I think both things are obviously derivative, but everything always is at all points in time.
Yeah. I completely agree. Yeah. I think that clearly the desire from both the RPG side and from the hobby side, from the wargaming side of it, and how big it spread and how it hits and the variety of content that's producing from it now too, with Last War coming out. Because we're doing the first book, Forbidden Psalm, but it's hard to not think about the Forbidden Psalm rule set and how it's used and stuff like that. Yeah, I think it's really original too. When I think of games that it's similar to, 12 Years got an 8, And like Troika got a 7, Lancer got a 7. What are you thinking?
I think it's a 7.
I think it's a 7. I think that's right around where it lands for me too. And then for value, I had already brought this up. We have $25 for softcover and PDF from Exalted Funeral, which is great for an 82-page softcover book. That I think that's slightly better than average. I think and the hardcover is only 40 pages plus the PDF. And I think we said average is roughly like 35 plus a PDF.
Right.
For a book that's at least, yeah. So this is a little bit better. So obviously, to me, that's already a 6. It's got the third-party license with third-party content already being created with the Regicide. So to me, that's at least a 7. You can use most Mörk Borg things with this.
Well, and you can create custom scenarios. It gives you how to create custom scenarios, so you could actually continue your current Mörk Borg campaign in this.
Which would be a cool way to switch over if you want to do kind of like a more like war-based kind of thing with your... Because you could theoretically run 5 people as a 5 warband party with this too. What are your thoughts? I mean, I think
pretty high because all Mörk Borg extra content can be used in this. All of it.
Yeah. Well, we did give Mörk Borg a 10 for all of that extra content. So
I mean, it's a 9. I mean, some of it's gonna be knocked out, but like, I mean, essentially, it's the fucking same. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm down with that. I think you really can't judge one as one thing and then one as the other when it literally uses the same license to create. So that's where we're at. I think this is a really high score because that value score, again, the average value score for all the games we reviewed is roughly like 6.5. So plus 7.
38.
Okay. I think we've had a couple 38s. Yeah. Oh, it's exactly whatever what was the last game that we did? 12 years? Exactly the first 12 years. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. So a little bit better on the value and pretty solid scores across the board. Nothing that drops too low. And that is Forbidden Song.
That's Forbidden Song.
So thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Kevin, for coming on.
Yeah.
Such a night. We are just getting... Dude, we are getting so lucky with the people we bring on, just being like chill as fuck people. Johan, Max, Kevin, super, super chill guys. Forbidden Psalm, wonderful game. Highly, highly recommend snagging it. Last War is still on Kickstarter. Definitely go check that out. And look for all the rest of Kevin's stuff. Yeah. Oh, it's kind of close. Kind of close. So that's our episode. I don't think we have... Do we have a plan for next week yet? We'll see. It's up in the air. We'll announce it. You'll see it on no later than I think Wednesday as I try to announce our next game. So that's it. Thank you for being here. We are going to cut to our ending screen and I might raid off. So stick around if you would like to. Hunter, thank you for being here. You are the man.
Thank you, Ryan.
Talk every day. And goodbye, everybody.
Farewell, everyone.
Bye.